back to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
Hola.
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
and Chow Min Woo.
Welcome back.
Yep, no Mikhail this week. He's sleeping. But yeah, thank you all for covering while I wasn't here last week. Last week, of course, was the 4th of July here in the States. Well, I mean, 4th of July everywhere, but the holiday here in the States. And just had people over, couldn't sneak away and be like, I gotta chat to the microphone for a couple hours.
Not to talk
But,
about video games for a few hours. Give me a sec.
Yeah. I was looking at all the news for the last couple weeks. And just, yeah, there's more this week, we'll talk about it. Anyways, so this week's episode of the Tetracast, in my notes, looks like it's episode 450, if I've kept my numbering up to date. Kind of a neat milestone. So congrats to us. So pat ourselves on the back for that. We're going to be talking about a lot of releases coming out in the last few days in July. So the main one we're going to be starting out with today is going to be Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. Josh will take point on that. I'm sure Chow will also have opinions. And then we're going to be talking about another early July release, which I think is pretty neat and I'm interested in hearing more about. That is Veritas Tales, Witch of the Dark Castle. I think James was able to cover that for us, and other people have expressed interest, so that'll be an interesting title to dive into. We'll go into some news. As it has been for this whole summer, we have more Xbox-centered updates. It's not happy news as it hasn't been for the last couple months, but some real tangible ties to RPG-related space. So we definitely want to at least talk about it. And then a few other headlines, not a ton this week, other than the big central one that is cascading everywhere in terms of American video game industry in general. So we'll touch in on that. So that's the general overview. Of course, we have a handful of features and previews going up. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced released. We have a few features on that. The Sword Art Online game, Echoes of Aincrad, also just released. We did not get a early code for that, so we do have people working on that, but we don't have coverage on that this week. Maybe we'll cover it in a later week. So I think that covers the highlights. So without further ado, like I said, we're going to start out with the expansion to last year's Granblue Fantasy Relink. Was it last
2
year or
years ago.
2024?
2024.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Early 2024, like almost even like 2023 with how early it was.
Yeah. So all right, we're going to be talking about the expansion to the 2-year-old Granblue Fantasy Relink, Endless Ragnarok. Josh, I know you've been working on this one behind the scenes for a while now, and in a couple different ways, reviewed it, some guides, some features, sharing some thoughts on social media. So you are going to take point on this one. Just take it away. Granblue Fantasy Relink, Endless Ragnarok.
Yeah, this has been cooking up behind the scenes because we got a fairly early code, and I was like, okay, let's just dive in. That Relink is pretty much beloved. When word of mouth started to spread on it 2 years ago, it released, and people really didn't know what to expect because it was in development hell for quite a bit. When people recall that, certain aspects of it, when Platinum Games was like the primary developer, or when Cygames had to open up an Osaka branch, to take over development on it. And it was just, messy is underselling it. Honestly, it was a miracle that it came out and it was as good as it was. I think it kind of took everyone by surprise. So when the original Granblue Fantasy Relink came out 2 years ago, as people who showed up, supported it, and played it, loved it, and the overwhelming response to it was, "Hey, we want more." I'm sure that for the developers over at Cygames, that's a good problem to have. When the biggest response out there was, "Hey, we want to play more of this game." So that's kind of one of the cool things I appreciate about Endless Ragnarok is games these days, when they get an expansion, are usually pre-planned during the development of the base game in some way, shape, or form. And maybe and sometimes it's like even announced like in the marketing of the base game, which is kind of a weird thing, but that's very much a common practice these in like the certain sectors of the gaming industry. Meanwhile, Endless Ragnarok, it only went into development because of this response, and it only started development maybe 2 to 3 months after the base game came out. Once Cygames heard loud and clear, like, wow, our audience really wants to see more of this. What can we do to give them more of this in a timely fashion? And I think that's the main thesis of my evaluation and review of Endless Ragnarok is it's a really, really fun and impressive game considering its relatively short 2-year development cycle from start to finish. And I know when people think of 2 years, it's like, wow, that seems like a long time. It's like for video games, especially modern video games of this size and caliber, it's not like a small indie project. That's a pretty long time, you know. I'm not sorry, short time for a game to get made these days. Um, so this expansion builds off the end game of Relink. When people went through Relink for the first time, it was that standard story chapter progression, linear story, etc., etc. And then after you got to the end of it, you were sort of thrust into this interesting end game loop where it resembled something more of Monster Hunter in terms of progression, where you actually had a quest board. And in order to unlock the next difficulties, the more new quests, you uh, continued to play more of this quest board until you got to see the final missions, which is obviously total revamp, totally different from how you were progressing through the main campaign of that game. Meanwhile, Endless Ragnarok, even from its main story, it adopts this structure from the end game of Relink, where everything is done through the quest board. In terms of progression in it, you you pick out a mission from the quest board, you complete it, you go on to the next one, and so forth. And there are some modes that were added and exist outside of this, like this new Conflux roguelite, which you'll get tutorialized on it, and then you do it a few times, and you get pretty good like character progression rewards out of it. The deeper that you go, it has its own sort of systems around it, where there's strings of stages that are very bite-sized. Um, Usually, like, hey, beat up this amount of enemies in this amount of time, or it's a wave-based thing, or beat up this boss. There's some non-combat encounters, like, hey, there's this trio of guys. They will shuffle each other up. You have to find the one that like waved at you at the beginning. You have one that's like a platforming challenge. Go collect these crystals in this amount of time, and you have one that's like an Exit 8 esque, like spot the differences mini game, and that sort of stuff as well to vary it up. And it's decent, like it's for a mode that's not the main focus of Relink overall. It's varied enough. Obviously, you do it a lot, it'll get repetitive, but ultimately it exists there because it's a good way to get a bunch of materials really fast to level up your other character. Because that was one of the pain points of Relink, where if you wanted to play solo, because obviously if you played with others, you only have to focus on one character. But if you wanted to play solo, building up your 3 other characters for your
Oh,
offline
it's coming
party.
back to me. I forgot that that's
Uh-huh.
how it worked. I mean,
Yeah.
because what I did was, not to just jump in just super
Yeah.
quickly, is
Go
that
for it.
Adam ended up doing, I think, what you're describing, the character guide. And then for
Mhm.
me, he's just like, "I'll carry you, buddy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, so I don't have to do the character guide because Adam carried me."
Right. Yeah. So Endless Ragnarok makes that easier for solo players. They'll give you a lot of mats at once for doing this roguelite run, so you can go power up your other character or your main character. And that's cool. It has its own like exclusive systems to power your characters. Like it'll have like certain buffs that will only apply if you go to the roguelite mode. That's all fun. It's one of those things like you unlock new difficulties in it. Like the further you go until a certain point. But I kind of wish there was more variation to it because you always run into like the same final bosses, which like in other roguelike games, usually you'll get more variation. But once again, it's one of those things that's like it's not the main focus of the game. It was when you're thinking about like how you're gonna balance your resources, time, and energy throughout this 2-year development cycle, like I get it, but I do wish it was somewhat more fleshed out as well. And in terms of the overall, like I'll say the weakest part of this expansion and like my main like knock against it is the narrative presentation, where in the base Relink game, it was a good like fun ride for people who weren't in the Granblue, like they didn't know about Granblue, they weren't invested in the Granblue material, and maybe they've never even heard of Granblue up until that game. It was one of those things like, hey, there's this crew of characters, they already know each other, they're going off on this brand new adventure that's totally separate from everything else. It was a good like, there's this conflict at this part of the world that's all self-contained. There's some things that happen in the story that that does have like a conclusive end to this part of the story arc and all that stuff. And I was like, and throughout that time, it was like almost like a Hollywood action movie where there were a lot of fun, varied action sequences and cutscenes where you had like you know like sky ship versus sky ship, like aerial warfare. You were piloting like a robot at one point. You were doing like escape sequences. There were explorable levels, and you had like some cool cutscenes and boss battles in between that. And there was like followed a pretty nice, smooth progression there. While the narrative in Endless Ragnarok, because it's taking this quest board structure as its main progression, um, to get through the main story, it's sort of weird because like the basic story premise of this is, hey, there are new mutated monsters popping up. What is going on? It's very much, you think of a Monster Hunter G rank story, and there's like mutated monster, Sunbreak Rise, and you had like the Eternals, Seofan and Tui, they're like this elite. They come from this elite group called the Eternals, and like the first quest to even start this expansion is, hey, we got to make sure that like you're tough enough to take on these monsters. So you get this brand new dual boss battle right away against both of them. That's very flashy, very cool, and all that stuff. But there's not. But in terms of like what actually happens throughout the narrative as you're going and what you're seeing, it's just that string of quests of like, after that boss battle, you fight like some mutated monsters. The first one introduces you to the new summon system, and after fighting a certain amount of uh monsters and through these quests, you'll get like short memory vignettes that tell you more about like the mythos and the world building of the Granblue universe as a whole, in like very small snippets that like, it's like, okay, sure, but your characters effectively end up doing nothing in the narrative besides doing these quests and chatting up with these new characters, Frau and Fidel, and later memory vignettes go into the mythos of like Frau, for example, which is part of the Arcarum, which is like, that there's tarot card representation of the Granblue universe. Eventually, you learn a little bit about Frau and why they're rebelling against this being called the world, sort of that stuff. And then after that, you start learning more about Fidel and the Six Dragon. But like in very, like I said, like if you've seen the Fate episodes in Relink, it's very much like presented with that, like where it's just like this kind of visual novel-esque like blocks of text that describe a situation of like how things came to be, but your characters don't really do anything at all in this. And like all the characters that they establish in Relink, they don't really do anything. In this, you're
I
just
think
like,
that's a
okay,
problem with
sure.
the main mobile game too. I think a lot of story events, they say that the better story events are main protagonists don't do anything in it, or feature less, and then all the spotlight's taken by other characters. I think it's a problem with the main game too. So
I don't even know like it, like, but that's the thing. Like your main, the new characters, like yes, they take up the spotlight in the sense that they have like the scenes in this are just basic character interactions, and if you take them to like the some of the boss battles, they'll have obviously some dialogue there, but there's not like any flashy cutscenes or anything to really show them off to make them look cool or anything like that. And like I said, like if you're balancing, resources and energy on like what should you focus on, I think Cygames smartly decided to focus on enhancing the gameplay at the cost of this weaker narrative presentation. And it's one of those things that like if you're into already the lore of the Granblue universe, you'll definitely get something out of it if you're big into that. If you're really not, like me and many others going into this, it'll kind of do nothing for you. Uh, that's how I feel about it. But at, but that's like kind of like the worst part about it because everything else surrounding this is really fucking cool. You have a lot of new progression systems with the weapon transcendence, the master traits, the new characters, a lot of the quality of life stuff that was added in the base relink that's also reflected in Endless Ragnarok.
You know,
Just everything, it feels great to play, and it's easy to lose many, many, many hours into it. And you'll boot it up, and like 8 hours will pass by, and you're like, wait, you'll blink. It's like, wait, 8 hours already passed by. Go for it, James.
I was just gonna say I agree with pretty much everything you said. I thought the lore stuff was neat as someone that has negative intention of ever touching the actual mobile game. And I know it was like a pain point when Relink first came out, where some people were upset about the Fate episode stuff because it's like, hey, this feels like kind of weak compared to what they expected, like the character like side stories to be, and people basically responded saying, "Oh, well, this is just how it was in the mobile game." It's like that's not a defense. That's just saying that this is how it was in the mobile game. So you're fine with it because you play the mobile game, but a lot of people that picked up Relink were at least told, or the impression that people had about that game before it came out was, hey, so this is the Granblue for people that want to get into the universe without touching the mobile game. And it was, but you know what I mean.
So that's an interesting, like, it's also interesting because, like, with the new updates and patches, they actually added, like, a scene for the lifelink at the beginning of the game, supposedly. Like, I didn't actually see it for myself, but that was part of the patch notes. They added, like, a new beginning cutscene that shows the lifelink with Lyria, either Gran or Jita, which main character you chose, which, like, I totally forgot they didn't actually have a scene that actually introduced, like, the whole premise of, like, why this story starts at all.
I remember
Granblue.
they definitely mentioned that at launch. I don't know if it was if it was an actual cutscene, but I do remember
Yeah, they
that
mentioned it.
was
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah,
So,
but not actually like a cutscene for it. Yeah,
anyways, in terms of
yeah.
gameplay, loving Endless Ragnarok. I think like my one complaint is I wish there was at least an option to do the conflicts in multiplayer,
Yeah, I
because
can
it's
see that. Yeah.
really annoying having to grind up multiple characters for each level of conflicts when it's like I love the loop of progression and relink. I don't know if I love having to do everything again besides sigils if I want to try playing a different character, or if I want to do the conflicts, and I don't want to feel like everything's taking forever because I have like my one main guy and then I need to grind up three other guys.
Yeah, yeah. That is definitely the your mileage may vary part of the game where it does take time to build up a new character from scratch. If you haven't like developed ways to speeden up the grind for those, it's a shame in that it's still like that. Even though there are parts about it that they've made better. Like for example, if people are leveling up their ascension weapons, like awakening them, people always remember the big bottleneck mat in it is this one mat from the really bad Excavalion fight, which is the big stone golem that you fight in that main story. That you have to like hit some of the things on its legs, and then to make it topple over, and then like defeat like the generator head or something. to finally end that fight. And the loot for it was like this fortified hearth, and it was not a guaranteed drop. And you needed that to uh, further your ascension weapon, for example. And I was like, "Oh, I have to do this. Like one of the big things that they added is like those hard to get mats are now at least guaranteed drops. At least one of them will always guarantee the
Yeah.
drop in those quests. It's like that's a big thing because it's better to have one guaranteed one over 20% chance it felt like to
Yeah, yeah.
for the drop. Yeah, but
I
it's
definitely
it's it's
say
does go for it.
I definitely say like one of the issues with Fenris Ragnarok, and I guess it's not an issue, but it's very I guess it is an issue,
Mm.
is I like the loot treadmill for Granblue Relink, and I feel like it was already pretty strong in the base game. They might have gone a bit overboard in terms of Endless Ragnarok by adding in the Transcendence for every other weapon, and then another level of Transcendence on top of the Ascension and Terminus weapons. That is a lot of shit to grind for weapons that you already made.
Yeah, but I'm like 50-50 on that in terms of like they didn't add any brand new weapons except for the post launch update characters that they added in the base game because they
Right,
they were
yeah.
lacking weapons. They didn't have Terminus.
I don't think they have terminus weapons for some of the DLC characters
Yeah,
or
they added them,
X.
but with
So
here. But yeah, um, but to offset like not having any brand new weapons for like the base cast, Transcendence is a way to make all their weapons viable. Because the end
Yeah.
of the base game, it was very much Terminus the meta. That was the thing that
Yep.
everyone was going for because the damage output of it outweighed the defensive risks you take with it. So it's one of those things that's like I understand why weapon transcendence was like added, and it is cool that it does make things varied because of the way that weapon transcendence works with the swappable traits in them and exclusive bonuses that each weapon type is. How defender type gets more damage, uh, depending on how much like overall health you have. The higher the health, but more damage, etc. Um, but like you said, because there's all these brand new quests. It's a whole new difficulty tier. They all have brand new drops exclusive to that. That's how they get everyone on the treadmill again. Is all the weapon transcendence mats is all exclusive to all those brand new quests, that new difficulty tier, because that's the thing that you're gonna be. Um, they want people to grind away at it. Really to get everyone powered up to the most that they can be, because these weapon transcendence uh, levels also add a second row of like mastery nodes in the collection tab that also give you further universal stats. So let's just like the base game with how you're incentivized to fully level up everyone's weapon because of those nodes. The same thing happens here again, where everyone has a second row now of those nodes. So you're once again further incentivized to do that to get the most out of your character. And it is a grind if you really want to have like an optimized four party set. If you're just focusing on one and you're planning to do it mostly multiplayer, very doable. I think it's reasonable. But if you multiply that, to when you add on more characters to that, even outside of like maybe you don't want the just your only AI party. You want to try out new characters, but you don't want them feeling underpowered. You want to see what they're capable of. So let's say that you really get attached to one. Sometimes like the sigil layout, or some obviously the weapons that you have to build up from scratch again. You have to do that grind once more for those characters. It's just like Granblue. It is up to every person for them to decide how much they want to grind it, because it is a game you can grind. I won't say forever, but almost forever. It really depends on how you know
How much effort do you want to put in, right?
Exactly.
Like, do you want to be
Yeah.
a god in this game, or do you want to be a pleasant?
Yeah, I
Or,
definitely pleasant. I
Okay.
definitely say you can. Base game Relink. I only played for about like 60, 70 hours. I can
Only?
definitely see. Yeah. Well, no. In terms of like treating it like a Monster Hunter type deal, 60, 70 hours is not much. But I can already tell this weekend I'm gonna like eclipse my current Monster Hunter Wilds time in like Endless Ragnarok, combined with base game, of course. But yeah, I don't know how much longer how much beyond like finishing the game I'm gonna keep playing, because on one hand I am interested in checking out other characters, but the grind to get them all like powered up is like just so much worse than if you're playing Monster Hunter, for example. Like, you can use the same armor set and the same decorations across like multiple weapon types, and the only thing you really have to focus on is like fine tuning for what your armor set is, and then specifically the one weapon you want to use. So it's very easy to switch between weapons. You can't really do that. You can't do that at all in Granblue, because it's which character you want to play as is an investment. And
Yeah.
if you want to start using a different character at endgame Endless Ragnarok, assuming you're starting from a base point of they're already level 100, that's still going to take you like 15, 20 hours to get them from base game endgame to Endless Ragnarok endgame, just based off of like the shit you need to grind. Like, maybe not even the special materials, but like the centrums and the what are the names for
Daybreak
like
merits.
the daybreak merits, and also the resources to if you just got them to level 100 and you haven't fully uncapped the materials you need to uncap, and then to level all the weapons up to 150, and then when you get to Transcendence and Ascension, it's like there's just so much shit you need to grind to level a character properly.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel a bit overwhelmed when I boot up Endless Ragnarok, to be honest. Actually, I was like, I had to do this and that. I'm a little bit lost.
I it's one of those things that I'm glad that like about a month and a half ago or so, I booted up base Relink for the first time like in quite a while, like a year and a half at least, just to get a feel of like what things were again, unlock the post-launch update characters, and just get my bearings again. Because like if I were to revisit my old save with the launch of Relink, I would be in that same boat where like everything just kind of just it's thrown at you, and it doesn't. It's not really to the game's fault in that manner, but it's just since there were already a lot of systems in the base game, Endless Ragnarok just continues to throw things at you on top of that base game. It doesn't necessarily like overwhelm you at the start, but you're trying to get reacclimated of like where you were. Plus, you're getting fed new info on top of that while you're trying to remember how things worked in the first place, which is it can be overwhelming. It's not something that like it's insurmountable, but it is definitely a lot when you're put in that position. Um, let's see what else. And I think the one of the things that really helps like makes this expansion very fun is this new master trait system, because it's basically a way to specialize your characters into certain parts of their move set, their skill set, where they'll gain like special effects and buffs and sometimes general properties of certain moves in their skill set, that could repurpose them either to a more like tanky role, or to a more support role, or for some others it'll help them deal DPS in different ways, because it's focuses on synergies on certain parts of their moves. Like if you do this, it'll affect these moves. So you are starting to get a sense of like, okay, the which skills synergize with one another because of this master trait um, branch tree. And this is one of those weird things where when I got review code for this, I kind of no lifed it, because I got done with the game. I got it in a midweek, and then I got done with it by the weekend of that week because I was so entranced by it, and I was like, oh man, I kind of, not to say I have a lot of free time this, but like there's still quite a bit of time before when reviews come out, and where I am right now. So I was like, what, like I should probably do some guides, but I was like, what is the definitive guide for this? And I kind of went on a for better or for worse, I decided to make a master traits guide, and I was like, I'm just gonna write everyone's master traits down on a single page. I don't know if our site can support this amount of text, but I'll just try anyway. And that was like maybe a week and a half worth of diligent daily work of just
And you were like
transcribing.
worried about breaking the character limit on the CMS.
Yeah,
I don't know about
and
genuinely, but it was long, basically.
yeah, it was. It's you go there. It's a lot of text. There's times during the CMS where I press a letter on the keyboard and it took 4 seconds to show up. I was like, oh god. I eventually found tricks around making that responsive again, which was fun. But it was it was a lot of work, and I'm glad that people generally found it helpful. I also did a sigils and weapon transcendence guide as well, and I think it was helpful for people to have that before everything came out, because it's just kind of getting you a sense of okay, where's my favorite characters are at, what can they do now, and in general, if you're just sharing information with people, at least you can just hey, go copy and paste whatever traits you're talking about to other people in there, instead of trying to find a screenshot or trying to find some other sources. So it's just, it was one of those things that's maybe I'm the only one who feels fulfilled by this, but I felt proud that I was able to do it in that regard. But overall, I think Endless Ragnarok is more of Relink's endgame. If you really like Relink's endgame, you will get a lot more here. There's a lot of variation to it. There's a lot of fun new fights. Of course, a good chunk of them are still reskins of old fights, but they have new moves and mechanics to look out for. So they do feel fresh in some respect, but once again, it's something that you're not totally unfamiliar with. A good chunk of these fights, it's a fun. It's one of those things hey, if you're looking for a fun, responsive action RPG that will just, it's easy to sink many hours into this. It's an easy recommend.
But it sounds like they made a lot of smart choices in terms of hey, we want to get this out within a couple years. So we have to make some, I don't know, concessions is almost too poisoned of a word. We have to have some pros and cons. Yeah, we want to add some characters. Yeah, we want to have some new story, but we're gonna frame it, around the board quests or the what's the term for the character stories? We're gonna frame it
Paid
around that.
episode.
Hey, episodes.
Paid episode, yeah. Because that way, we can spend more time focusing on the gameplay additions. And of course, in a perfect world we have unlimited resources and unlimited time, and we make a whole new map and a whole new set of story quests that are on the same level of design and care. But then that's why the original game took so long to come out. They said, nope, we're gonna keep everything in scope. We're gonna stay, I don't know about on budget, but on time, on schedule, get it out within a couple years. And seems like it all came together in a really good respect with all those considerations in mind.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, right? Because the director of Endless Ragnarok is not the same director as base Relink. Sanshiro Hidaka was the base Relink's narrative director, and he is the overall director now of Endless Ragnarok. The original director, Yasuyuki Kaji, is, who knows what he's doing, So it does make me wonder. It's what if Hidaka took over as overall director? What is Kaji up to then?
Project Awakening. I don't know.
Who knows? It could be we're gonna get into Cygames' other projects in a bit, because there's updates on that. But I really hope whatever is next for Relink, because I think they're gonna plan to continue supporting Relink in terms of like they're already teasing like, hey, we're actually gonna have like skins for the characters that people can buy if they want to keep supporting the game. I don't know if they plan to like add like new fights along the way, but whatever is the next big thing for Relink, I really hope, and I say this at the end of my review, I really hope it's a full-fledged sequel that really takes into account all the lessons they learned from base Relink and Endless Ragnarok to make that like as great of a game as it's gonna be from the get-go. So I do wonder, like, hey, if you're gonna have like a new main sequel for Relink, what does that look like? If it gets like the proper time needed to really flesh it out, all the with all the stuff that they learned throughout the series of games, it could be phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to what the future of this entire project is. I think it's so freaking cool, and it's really cool that like they've rectified so many things with Endless Ragnarok from the base Relink. It's kind of like this weird thing when you talk about Endless Ragnarok, because at the same day, base Relink without Endless Ragnarok also got a substantial patch that added crossplay, for example, which is like a big thing that people wanted when that game first came out, because the online population dried up, like within a few months. But you had the PlayStation and PC audiences separate from each other. While now they added crossplay, you have even the Switch 2 audiences with those other audiences now playing together and all that sort of stuff. So, it's really really good. I think there are problems with it, but in general, it's a really great time. Even though I'm already done with all the story quests and all the post game story quests, like I finished those last night. Um, I still want to go back and play more, just to play with friends, play with random people, and think of like what characters do I want to build, because I am having fun with a lot of the new characters, but I haven't seen the potential of what they could all do and like what their different master traits, how they grow with those. It'll be interesting to see. I think this is
Yeah.
really fun, really really fun.
No, thank you for covering Endless Ragnarok so as thoroughly as you did, not only in your review, but your guide lists, in our discord.gg/rpg site. Other people have been playing this. They've been, referencing those guides, have been talking about their time. So it seems like a real cool kind of, shot in the arm for a game, just to say like, hey, we're adding some neat stuff not too long after the original release, and in today's contemporary terms. So I don't know. It seems like it's going to have a good window for it as well, in this part of the summer. All right, the second game we're going to be talking about today is kind of a bit of a swerve compared to the first, but it's a game that I think is a real cool a game to platform here and talk about. It's something that we've mentioned a few times in these different podcasts leading up to the release window. This is Veritas Tales, Witch of the Dark Castle. This is kind of a passion project helmed by Yoshio Nishimura. And we'll kind of go into some of the details there. We have a real cool interview. Mikhail's not here to speak to it right before release, or basically on release, about um, Nishimura's time at Vanillaware, at Capcom, retiring to the countryside, doing all sorts of artwork for this new project. And then James was able to cover this for us. So we'll talk about just the game itself, how it came to be. But James, I'll just kind of let you, take it away. Um, just as a standard game review, but also just kind of like where this game sits in terms of being a passion project helmed primarily by one person, of course, not developed solely by one person, in an environment where gaming and game development has become so fraught in unfortunate ways.
Yeah. So first off, very I didn't expect to be in the situation where we were essentially, as far as I can tell, like the only review that went live at launch.
Is
I
that true? Like I expected a limited number of reviews, but only review?
I've only seen people, like, I've seen multiple people comment that the only review they could find was ours, and I haven't been able to. Like, now I'm able to find a few, but like when it went live, ours was the only one I could find. I was like, oh,
As of right now, there's only 4 on Metacritic. Not that means anything, because people can write up their own review in a social media post or things like that. But yeah, a very limited number of reviews.
yeah. Anyways, I think the description I've come to kind of explain what this game is that it's like Radical Dreamers meets a tabletop RPG, and also it has like a bunch of elements from Resident Evil 2, which doesn't sound like it would make sense, but if you play it, you understand entirely what I mean by it. This is a game that you can tell that the person who made it loves exactly 3 things. D&D, drawing, and Resident Evil 2.
I
Why
love this
2?
combination.
The Holy
Could it be
Trinity,
any
they
Resident
say.
Evil, but why 2?
It's because it has the dual protagonists, and the way that an average playthrough of this works is that you start a playthrough on one of the 2 characters, and then what you do in that playthrough impacts your playthrough with the second. It has zapping.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, this is I mean, I pretty much agree with James' review here. Where this is a game that like a passion project of the highest caliber. Every frame of it, every new illustration, that's a whole entire UI. Everything you can tell was made with love and care throughout this whole entire thing. Like there'll be like certain illustrations you may not jive with stylistically, but you can't help but admire that, like, hey, you know, this person was really going for something throughout every illustration. Like, I'm very impressed, even though it's not like the most like challenging or demanding game, and there's a like overall strategies and difficulty and like progression and whatnot. It is a game filled with heart, uh, and that's all I can really like. That's the only phrase I can really think of when I'm like describing this game to people. It's like this is a game that was like made from the heart of such a. It's remarkable.
Yeah. It's like not a very complicated game. It very much wears what it is on its sleeve, and it's very clearly meant to be replayed. Like, the one thing I did mention in my review that I'm still not sure about is that I'm pretty sure there is a true ending, but if you mess up getting the true ending on your second play, like your second half playthrough, you have to start from the beginning, and it's like, okay. I got really close to what I am pretty sure was like getting all of the gems on the character sheet for the second character, and I was like, man, I just barely missed it. And I was like, I don't want to like replay immediately, like from the get go and whatnot. But it's like it's cool that stuff like that exists, you know?
Yeah, to like give people like a basic setup of like what this is. It's basically like as you described it, James. It's like a D&D as tabletop game presented as like a virtual storybook. I think even at the beginning of the game it says like there's like a logo for like saying virtual adventure book or something like that. And you take the role of either the warrior named Havelock or the mage named Paneri, and you are put into this fantasy world by this wizard that's portrayed as a story, and you are the chosen protagonist of like one of these 2, and you go up and investigating this city that has been overtaken by this witch. And so there's like a lot of fucked up creatures, like undead roaming the streets. There's like a rock golem blocking the exits, and you are tasked with, helping the people there um, get out of the situation. Like in Paneri's case, like she's there to find a mentor figure from this institute uh, that she's with, and along the way there are twists and turns that I what I like about this game is, even though the premise is very stereotypical fantasy, the way that you progress through it is deceptively not as straightforward as you might uh, think of going in. Like there are definitely some parts where it's like, oh, that's a nasty little trick that this game, and I kind of dig it.
It's really cool to read through the interview that Mikhail had with Nishimura, just about how he's worked at Capcom for years, basically straight out of art school. Um, Ended up feeling like the way he presents himself in the interview is like at Capcom he got to work with so many artists that he just wasn't sure like if he matched up. That's how I'm kind of interpreting it. So he ended up seeing what's the artists at Vanillaware? I'm trying to get the name. Kamitani, at Vanillaware, and just saw like if I work under this person, maybe I can improve my own art. So he goes from Capcom to Vanillaware, ends up doing remote work during like the COVID pandemic, and when they were starting to go back to offices, he's like, you know what? I think I just kind of want to keep doing my own thing. And he says he references that he's tried doing solo projects a few times, but they were good learning experiences, even if nothing came from them. But ended up getting so much support from his old colleagues, from his support network, living in a rural Japanese village, and just being able to put together like something that really speaks to him, not in the like under the oversight of a larger company or a larger publisher making, having certain get deadlines or goals or rubrics or thresholds to meet. Um, in that sense, he talks about the challenges he ran into. He talks about uh, things that he tried to incorporate. Games like original game book from Sorcery, which I think is like an old tabletop game or tabletop related game, was really inspiring for him. He also mentions just some interesting games that he likes to play, like he name drops Terraria as a really fun, like, sandbox game he likes to play. So it's just a really cool, like, I don't know, a very candid, I guess is the best word for it, interview of, like, someone who makes games and has loved games for decades at this point. So just and now has something that he can really, like, say is basically all his own out there. Um so definitely, if you haven't read any RPG site interview, go to the website, click that articles tab, and I don't know, Adam, maybe you can link it in the site post for this one because I just think it's one of the best Mikhail's done.
Yeah, and then shout outs to all the people who helped Nishimura on this game. Sakimoto, Bass Escape, lended their musical talent
Mhm,
game, all the support that Nilover and other colleagues on making this,
mhm.
dream project happen for this man. So it's a really feel good story. And I'm more for more feel good stories in the developments. You know,
Especially this year, feel good stories we're going to hold on to at the opportunities we get,
and I
and
think
then also, of course,
yeah, I
go
think
ahead.
for
Sorry.
people, uh, Nishimura does mention that like he'd like to see this coming to console. He wanted to release it on Steam first, and he's going to consider expanding to consoles for this game. So right now, seems like no plans, but I think it's definitely one of those. It's like if you want to see more of this expand and get additional, DLC, support it. I think there's a demo on Steam, right? That if you're not sure if you're gonna like it, I believe there's a demo up for it.
Let me check. I'm on the Steam page. Yes, there's a demo.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
I think Steam should make that demo button. It's kind of hidden on the right side. Like your friends want this game, own this game. It's anyways, kind of beside the point. I wish they made. I had to do Control F demo to find the button on the Steam page.
Huh,
So,
weird.
but it is there. There is one. Yes, and then of course check out James's review for Veritas Tales, which is the Dark Castle on RPGsite.net as well. All right, I'm going to sneak in here to just talk about a game that I played over the last 2
Yeah.
weeks, just very quickly, just to touch in, before we get into the news or article shout out to the news. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about my time with going through the Divinity series of games from Larian Studios, partially because they've been in my backlog. They announced a new project back at the Game Awards last year, which even though it's years away, I'm like, you know what? Here's some time to tackle some games from my backlog. So a couple weeks ago, I played through Divine Divinity, the clumsily clumsily named first game in the series. Thought it was, decent, but kind of a product of its time, but still something I'm very glad I went to. And then there was a second game that I played over the last 2 weeks called Beyond Divinity, kind of like a game that refuses to count itself numerically. Like, what in the world is Beyond Divinity? It's basically Divinity 1.5. That's basically what it is. Maybe that's selling it short, but that's kind of what it is. Came out a few years after the original game in the same engine, meant to really kind of tee up what was to come from that point forward. Uh, Beyond Divinity is. Have you ever heard the criticism of either a game or more typically in like uh, a anime series or show about the filler episode or the filler arc that doesn't go anywhere? Either it's genuinely like the definition of filler where it doesn't follow like a manga or a light novel, or it just feels like it's meandering. Like it depends on how you constrain filler. And then there's usually the counter argument like, well, filler can still be good if it provides character interactions or world building or things like that. Like just because something doesn't progress the plot forward or the narrative to a conclusion doesn't mean that it has less worth. It can still be really cool and really like some of my favorite episodes of anime are quote unquote filler episodes or filler like episodes. This entire preamble is to say that Beyond Divinity feels like the bad sort of filler, where this ends up being something that feels like there's not a lot of reason to play it for either enjoying it for what it is or enjoying it for being a smaller part of a larger whole. So at the end of Divine Divinity, very quickly, you defeat a demon, but the demon ends up summoning his master into the body of a human child. But your protagonist cannot cannot bring themselves to kill the human child because it's innocent. Maybe you can prevent them from becoming like a vessel for a demon entity. Uh, that kind of for the entire game of Beyond Divinity is kind of left to the background. You're like, what happened? Like this doesn't seem to follow off of the first game at all. It just seems to be like kind of a side story. And by the way, there's going to be spoilers for this game. I don't, it's 20 years old, but just so you know, you kind of have to have spoilers for this game to talk about it. Um, the premise of this game is that you are a paladin, pretty much like a nameless paladin that ends up becoming captured in like a demon world called Nemesis, and you need to fight your way out. However, you end up getting soul forged, basically like bonded to this death knight, this kind of like magic suit of armor. And you don't really know the circumstances for why this is or how this is, other than like these are two uneasy allies that have to work together to figure out a way to leave. They say, hey, if we can get out of the world of Nemesis and back to the world of Rivellon, which is where most of the games take place, we can break the Soul Forge and be free. We have to work together. And that's basically the premise of the game is these two characters. It's like a Baldur's Gate-ish style RPG where your party is only two people and you're going through the different acts, different characters. You run into different characters. There's one of the acts involves an imp village. One of the acts involves like a village of basically like nefarious humans, like humans that have decided to inhabit this demon world. Uh, but it feels so divorced from the original game. The original game introduces you to areas in Rivellon and different cities like Alaroth and Rivertown, and the entire Beyond Divinity, you're like trying to get back to Rivellon. You're not there. It's like Star Trek Voyager. Like you're in a completely different place and you're trying to get back. Um, and you go through the game. It has some interesting use of like the way skills work is very kind of clunky. Like as just I don't want to go too in detail, but as a general example, like the skill to use a single sword and the skill to use a sword and shield are two different skills. Like, why is this two different skills? This feels really stupid. So you can like weigh skill points. You're like, yeah, I use a single sword. I'm gonna put points in that. Then you realize, crap, I should have put my points in the sword and shield skill and not just the single sword. It's very silly. You can like refund skill points, but it like costs money. So it's just kind of like, well, that was a costly mistake, genuinely. Um, and then here's the kicker. You get through the game. It plays largely the same as the first game, only I don't think it's as memorable. The quests aren't as good. It's a lot more dungeon crawly. It's a lot more just spammy. You can tell it was kind of made in a hurry. And then you get to the end, and then you basically learn that you have been tricked the whole time. You had no say in it, and the knight that was soul forged to you was the demon baby from the end of the first game, and you just helped him escape. Good job, loser. And then that's the end of the game. That's basically like, wait, what? So it's the entire ending cutscene is basically 5 minutes of the game laughing at you for like, I can't believe you got duped, and you're like, I was just playing the game. I had no say in this. Like,
Does this demon baby thing come back to like? If I were to play Divine Divinity and then go straight to Divinity 2, would I miss anything? Like, is this demon baby thingy involved?
It's yes, it is. And going very quickly, the baby, his name is Damien. You don't know his name at the end of the first game. At the end of the first game, you just know that you were too late, and the Lord of Chaos is. I haven't played all of Divinity 2, so I can't say the outcome. But somehow he was going to be revived, but instead got like his soul or his essence or his spirit imported into this baby. And the main character of the first game, who goes by Lucian, couldn't bring himself to kill him. So you learn eventually that he kind of banished the kid into this other realm. Like, I'm not going to kill him, but I will banish him so that he can't do any harm. And then Beyond Divinity is basically how he got unbanished. So it kind of tells you, if you play Divinity 2, which I've also started, how Damien got free, but it doesn't really matter. He's free, and he's a very generic, at least at this point in the game, bad dude. I'm trying to think of like, he's like a cartoon villain, not like in a bad way, because sometimes you don't want a villain to be like, oh, he's you're sentimental to his cause, or he was just led astray. Like sometimes you just want like a bad person, like a Disney villain. Like there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of what Damien is. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. He's basically like Scar or Jafar. I don't know. He's just a bad character. So if you don't play Beyond Divinity, you just don't really get any context for how he was freed, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like he broke free, and now he's causing havoc. And good job. That's all. That's all you
This
really need to
whole
know.
this whole filler discussion, like kind of tonality to it, it reminds me that I've heard some people describe like the main story of Baldur's Gate 2 as quote filler, like basically everything to do with John Arenicus, because it's like it is in a separate location, in a separate place, kind of like
Yeah, it doesn't take place in Baldur's Gate. Gasp.
right,
How dare I?
unrelated to the events of the first game, and then at the DLC for Baldur's Gate 2, or the expansion, Throne of Ball, like kind of like returns back to Baldur's Gate 1 in terms of like, by the way, here's what happened here. So I've seen people throw that argument out. Although the thing is John Arenicus is like a pretty charismatic kind of
He's a good character.
villain.
He's a good villain.
It's kind of funny how he just kind of, sorry for the tangent, he just kind of like treats you as like a nuisance. He's like, yeah, I got what I want from you, go away and don't bother me. And then you're just kind of like trying to like get his attention, and he's just like, stop annoying me, go away, you useless whatever you are. But yeah, he's like that. It's fun. Like it doesn't have anything to do with the first Baldur's Gate in a sense, and that's true. But it's like he's a good character, and he's got a fun like motivation, and he's got a fun personality and a good voice. But yeah, your filler discussion made me think of that, which it's like not incorrect, but it's also like I think poor framing. So,
And I think I've used this example before, and it's a very silly, basic example. But like one of my favorite filler episodes of Naruto is the episode that focuses on Shikamaru after Asuma dies. Like, it's a filler episode, but it's emotional. It's got like really like, I don't know, poignant pacing. It's got like a muted art style. It's very somber, but it fleshes out characters. It's got like some really good interactions. It kind of motivates like what comes after that in terms of the arc that Shikamaru has in the middle of the story. So it's like a good filler can be good. And I'm not saying that Beyond Divinity is meritless, but it definitely leans towards the bad end of filler, because there's a lot of things that contribute to that. Like, for instance, in the second act of Beyond Divinity, you're basically doing quests for a village of imps. Imps seem to have I'm learning that they seem to be present in Divinity games. So they're kind of like, I mean, they're imps. I won't go into detail, but at the end of the act, they all die. Like, so it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess, none of those characters are going to be appearing again, or will they even ever be referenced again? Probably not. So there's just little things like that that make it feel like I could have read this in a little, like, I don't want to say like this game therefore shouldn't have been made or whatever, but it does feel like if you're limited on time and you just want to go to, if you're like me and you want to play older Divinity games, this one you could probably skip. Like if you had to skip one, it would be definitely this one. Also, just not for nothing, Divine Divinity has some really well-made fan patches that help it run well on modern systems. Divinity 2, I've also started that. Basically has a very popular fan patch, kind of like the old. It reminds me of the old DS fix for Dark Souls on PC, the original version, where it's like you play it with this patch, else it sucks. Beyond Divinity doesn't have that. There is, as far as I could tell, there is no, hey, grab this fan patch and the game will run well. So maybe that's like an indictment about people were like, oh, don't worry patching that one. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so I'm still glad I played it for like the context, and that way I've at least witnessed it for myself. But it definitely is a weaker game from the first for multiple reasons. I guess I do. One final note: I do kind of the chutzpah of the whole game, basically being like, "You got tricked, neener neener neener. Don't you feel stupid?" End of game. Roll credits. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of fun just to have that, even though it feels like, what? I had no say in this. Anyways,
You know what that reminds me of? Of like a game that kind of
Sure.
just at the end of the game, you're just like, "Ha, you got tricked. What a loser." That's the end. Final Fantasy 13 too.
Kind of.
You know the RPG I think of when I think of cliffhanger. It's like, you dumbass, you got tricked, and it's never gonna ever have a follow up for a probably good reason. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
Mm.
I actually don't know how that game ends. I'll homework for later. I'll look that one
You
up.
do not play Sonic Chronicles. It is not good.
Okay, yeah. I'll look up the ending on YouTube or something like that. Yeah. All right. Before we go into the news, we have a few other article shout outs here that I wanna give. Actually, I'll start with this one because it's one of yours, is James. James, you attended Anime Expo just this last week. Was it last
Yep.
weekend?
It was last weekend, yeah.
And you were able to find a few places where it coincided with some RPG site themed coverage. You wrote an article about the Suikoden anime. I
Yeah.
actually have not read this article, so just tell me what you were able to see and your thoughts on it.
So it actually wasn't too much. I got to see the trailer for it a little bit early, and then I more specifically got to interview one of the producers at Konami Animation, which I didn't even realize that Konami had an animation studio that they had opened up in 2023. And this weekend in anime is like one of their first real full-length anime projects that animation studio is working on. So this is not an already established studio. This is a new studio. That's crazy.
Yeah, I
'Cause it
didn't know
looks
they
pretty
were
good.
up for since 2023. I thought they were you
No,
newer than that.
well, 2023 is pretty new. It's like they established in 2023, and then they started with shorts for advertising
Okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
I see.
I was aware that it was a newer studio and this was their first full anime.
Yeah.
I
So, yeah,
didn't know what
talked
their
with-
first projects were. Like I didn't know they did the voice shorts.
So yeah, I talked with the producer at Konami Animation, and then I talked with the Suikoden brand IP director at Konami, Rui Naito, which is actually a crazy cool name. That's a name.
That's a unique name. Cool.
Yeah, so talked a bit about the process of hey, so how did this brand IP revival even happen? What led to the idea of doing the anime, and what came first, the remaster, the anime, or the mobile game? And it turns out, reading between lines, we had heard back in 2017 in the wake of Super Bomberman R doing well on Switch that Konami was looking to revive a bunch of your old IPs. The Suikoden IP revival started right then and there when they decided to revive IPs. So this whole remaster, mobile game, anime stuff, they started that process in 2017.
Yeah, I was
And-
looking up Super Bomberman R. When's that? Yeah, 2017.
And he outright said that and I asked what was the first part of the survival, and it was kind of like a situation where they knew they wanted to do Starleap the mobile game, but they stopped and realized that, oh, we need to strengthen the IP a bit first before we just drop this mobile game, which is why they decided to do the remaster of 1 and 2, and they also wanted, I say remaster, I guess it's kind of like in between a remaster and a remake, you know what I mean? So remaster 1 and 2, and then the anime for 2, because by his, like, and this was the poll quote, it's like, for the younger audience, anime is a huge deal these days. It has been for the last, like, several years, well, longer than several years, but you know what I mean? And so if you want to get that IP into, like, in front of people, doing an anime adaptation made a lot of sense. So I don't know if it's going to work out with Starleap, but I just, like, hearing it from the horse's mouth, it's like, you know, this feels very competent. This feels very well planned out and competent. So I hope it works out, because you're doing everything right.
It is a little. I mean, I get it, but it is a little funny that the this whole initiative was in service to the mobile.
Well, I mean, it was
Well,
the same thing that we know. I mean, that's what Konami's been doing a lot, because,
Oh
like,
yeah,
we know that's
I'm not
the
saying
same
it's
thing as,
bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's funny.
and even if it was just in service of one thing, they're still, like, putting in a proper effort in and everything else. Like, you see it with Silent Hill, where it's like, apparently the Silent Hill revival was for that terrible fucking Silent Hill 2 movie. That didn't stop them from doing a Silent Hill 2 remake, Silent Hill F, a Silent Hill 1 remake, and, like, Silent Hill Townfall. It's like, they're not just, like, they're doing a multimedia, like, approach, and they seem to be committed to that for multiple of their IPs, and I think that's actually really cool. But I don't know.
I hope
And
the
hopefully,
Starleap mobile game isn't the end of it. That's just that's
Yeah.
my
yeah, I was gonna say that hopefully, like, the most, I don't know if charitable is the right word, but, you know, if they can get their mobile game to hit, it can hopefully be used to then leverage other projects. Like, that's, like, guess, like, the
Yeah.
dream compromise, I guess. It's just like, hey, if this ends up becoming, like, a reliable income source, you know,
The
that
vibe
people are
I'm
passionate
getting,
about.
the way that they're,
uh,
like, positioning it, it kind of reminds me of what they were doing with Romancing Saga Reuniverse for a bit, where the core, like, that was, like, acting as advertisement for other projects. Because I looked into it, the way that Starleap works is that the 108 Stars of Destiny that are new to Starleap are not going to be part of the gacha. You just get them in the story.
yeah.
What you get in the gacha are, like, characters from previous games, or, like, alt versions of existing units. So that's very, when they do a Suikoden, like, 3, 4, and 5 remaster, which seems pretty clear it's going to happen eventually. That's they can have those characters in Starleap to advertise both at the same time, which I think that would be smart.
I hope those remasters happen. I'm always one of those people. It's like it's confirmed when they confirm it. I'm not gonna get my hopes up
Yeah.
in that regard. Like Chow, we've been in this space for a while with these mobile games, especially when the Japanese market and the Chinese market definitely develop these types of games in their own way, and how it feels like the Chinese market is emerging as like the top. When comparing both, it seems like the Chinese market is definitely ahead of the game in this regard. I'm worried about the Suikoden mobile game in the sense that it feels very primitive to what, like, stuff like Wuthering Waves, all the
I don't think it will
Hoyoverse stuff.
succeed, to be honest with you. Like I like even like Ever Crisis is probably like Square Enix's top dog. That's end of service pretty soon too, right? So I don't know. I don't.
That's what I'm worried about, because like them already announcing a staggered release for Starleap, like worldwide, like it's not even releasing worldwide simultaneously. Plus, the Suikoden IP is, for example, very, very, very relatively unknown compared to something like Final Fantasy VII, and yet even the mobile game that is dedicated to Final Fantasy VII is struggling to pull in enough user retention and revenue or whatever to keep that in place for a while. Look, I hope Starleap does well enough for them to continue with this whole Suikoden Grand initiative. I just hope it's not the the be all end all of like, oh no, the product that we were trying to push with this initiative didn't pan out the way that we wanted to. Let's shut down this entire initiative because it didn't pan out for us. I hope that's not the future for this.
Yeah. I
We've seen that horror story too many times.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
like Sakura Wars.
I understand what you're saying. I don't know, just seeing how like again the Silent Hill stuff has worked out. I
it's
wouldn't
not
be
a
too
mobile
worried.
game.
Yeah, it's not a mobile game, but it's like they tried it with with that movie, and it, by all accounts, didn't work out. But the games did, so they're keeping on going with the games. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Hopefully it works out.
Like I said, I hope the future is bright for Suikoden. I really love the series. I would love to see those older games be way more accessible to modern platforms because they all deserve to be played.
When you were at Anime Expo, James, did you get to see or interface with Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2?
Yes, I actually have to apologize because I did a bunch of, so I've done some coverage for RPG site for Anime Expo stuff, obviously, between the Metaphor stuff, the Suikoden stuff, and there's like one more thing that's going up on RPG site, and then another thing that's going up on Respec in the next couple of days. There's at least a few things that I did at Anime Expo that I covered for Kotaku that
Oh, right.
that
Don't apologize for that.
would fall under our scope, but I wanted to check if Kotaku was interested first because
No, that's
you
that's
understand.
awesome. I forgot about that. I should have remembered. Yeah, no, don't apologize for that. But no, okay. So, Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2 was also shown off at Anime Expo. Jess Reyes, alumni of the site or just contributor to the site, was able to cover Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2 on RPG site. So we'll definitely give a shout out to her her preview for that. Maybe another hit in the making. It is very different from the first series. But James, with your time at Anime Expo, I've Edgerunners is one of those shows that has been on my we should watch this. It's got really good word of mouth, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it's good.
But
It's
yeah,
a
so Edgerunners
very
2.
Yeah, Edgerunners season 1, or well, I guess Edgerunners 1 is very much what you would expect from a Cyberpunk 2077 Studio Trigger show. For good and ill. I like it quite a bit. It knows what it is, and it doesn't really try to be anything more than what it is, I'd say. It just executes it really well. Edgerunners 2 is going for a very different tack. It's still Studio Trigger. It's still a lot of the same staff. The director's different, but it's going for a much more not subdued is not the right word, but a more nuanced approach to how it's like showcasing Night City. It's like they had the bombastic, like action movie-esque showcase of it in the first Edgerunners, and this one is like they want it to be more like not like a biopic, but more like really focusing on just not one central character, but like each of the 4 main characters. It's a focus on using them as like a mirror to showcase the different aspects of life in Night City and how it fucking sucked. And it's neat so far. Again, only saw the first episode. The one way they described it is that they wanted season 2 to be more like Martin Scorsese than Michael Bay. If the
Okay.
So it's cool. It's cool. Definitely read Jess's piece on it. Read my piece on Kotaku, and also read. There's a couple of other folks that put up impressions of it. I know Isaiah Colbert put up something on IO9 Gizmodo, and he had a lot of really. His is probably the one you should read because he's the expert at this stuff. He writes a lot about anime, and he has a lot of like. That's like the one. If you were gonna read one impressions piece, that's the one I would recommend. But yeah, everyone I know that saw the premiere is like, yeah, this is gonna fucking rule.
And it starts airing this fall. I guess Netflix Korea put out an October 20th date, but then not official. It was retracted, but at some point this fall, Edgerunners 2. So that tells me I have a few months to watch Edgerunners 1. But real cool opportunity that you had to get a preview of that. Definitely check out James's piece over at Kotaku and check out Jess's piece over at on RPG site, and then of course our anime channel in our Discord. Maybe we'll have multiple people watching it there once it launches. We'll see. A couple other interviews to look at here, since Mikhail's not here to speak to them himself. Disgaea Mayhem is slated to release in the West in later July 23rd. So Mikhail was able to have an interview with the development team. Kind of a fun, cool interview, even though this is not really related to the game directly. But I love that Mikhail did his patented coffee question at the end, and they just asked like 10 people on the team what their coffee preferences were, and it ranged from I can't drink coffee, sorry, to I just put whatever, I just don't think about it on the coffee front.
I try not to judge, but the one answer where it's like I just pour my instant coffee directly into the milk, it's like
That was baller.
I add milk and sugar more or less at random, and I'm like, that's me. Just like, do I feel like it today, man? But anyways, yeah. Speaking about Disgaea Mayhem, it released in. I'm making sure I get my Disgaea terms correct. It released in Japan in January, but that's when it was not framed as a Disgaea entry. It was framed as like a spin-off by the same team. Well, not even a spin-off. It had no Disgaea direct connection at all, other than Cameo. And then for the Western release,
Disgaea in
right
in Japan, it was like
Makai Senki or something.
Something.
Mhm.
I did a preview from not anime, from TGS, I believe. Did I?
I mean, I get it. They can put the name recognition on there, put a little Disgaea, and it's
Kyoran
from the same development team, and it
Makai-san.
does have the characters at least cameoing. So I get it, but
No, I didn't
so
put
but
up
cool.
a preview. I
Yeah, it's
played
played
it.
for like, yeah,
I
he
meant
said
right.
Kyoran.
I mentioned it on a podcast, I think. I did not write up a preview because it was like a 5-minute demo. I was like, I don't have enough to write about here. Now I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. It was like Kyoran Makai is not. I was thinking of I was thinking of the Scottish Japanese name.
Yep. And then the other couple features that we have is another game that was released a couple days ago is Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. So Assassin's Creed Black Flag, this is kind of a weird area because it's not, Assassin's Creed pivoted to the more RPG slant with like Origins Odyssey and Valhalla. Then they're kind of have different releases with Shadows kind of being the RPG slant. And then what was the other one that released recently that was like back to the roots?
Mirage.
Non-RPG. Mirage, yeah. And then Black Flag was kind of like, well, this is a remake of one of the more well-liked games in the series, and Hayes was able to cover this for us on RPG site as kind of a branching path because it's not explicitly an RPG, but we've covered Assassin's Creed before. Hayes was really positive on it. He's actually really liked it quite a lot. And then Mikhail also did like a technical feature on it. Of course, it's the original game came out in I think 2013, so it's in a completely new engine and it's quite a glow up. I did see that it did launch with like $80 of cosmetic DLC, and it's just kind of like, did you have to do that? I get it. You want your revenue stream, but it just seems kind of, I don't know. I think it's just bad optics at the very least, but luckily optional and ignorable. But um, definitely give Hayes' look on Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced if you're interested at all. A read through on rpgsite.net. And then the last thing you have here before we go into a more abbreviated news section is that if you follow us on social media at all, you've probably heard about this, and we did speak to it briefly last week. But the formal launch of Respec.net occurred this week. I think the formal launch, like the site went live a little over a week ago, but then formally launched a few days ago. I'm not exactly sure what line is drawn between those, but Respec.net, Alexander Donaldson, along with a bunch of other games media veterans from places like VG247 and other places, Tom Ori, have launched Respec.net as kind of a sister site to RPG site. I don't think any of us here in this podcast are directly like involved in that site launch, though I'm sure we're going to like the sites are going to have a lot of cross talent. Certain people like Mikhail and Jess and Hayes and others have
Yeah,
already put up either news. Go ahead,
I'd
James.
submitted an SGF preview, and it wasn't made clear that apparently there was overlap between me and Jess with Tomb Raider. So Jess got hers up, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, respec.net is going to have a lot of the same culture DNA that RPG Site does, but for no specific genre limitations. So very much feels, to my mind, I can't speak to it directly because it is Alex's baby, uh, like a spiritual successor to VG247. So do at least want to give them a shout out. You'll probably see or hear from some of us over time as the basically if we have something that we want to cover that doesn't fall into the genre scope of RPG Site, you might see it on Respec. But branching paths might still exist on RPG Site. A lot of it's still kind of like we're just going to see how this goes. So I at least wanted to give that a quick shout out. Like for instance, Hayes has already put up some features over there about Ambrosia Sky. He might have also covered nope, Tom already did Black Flag Resynced over on respec.net, but I at least wanted to give them a shout out. If you like what we do and wish that we covered other games, you should be able to get at least some semblance of that over at respec.net.
I do want to make it
say that
clear
carefully.
for I do want to make it clear for our listeners and our audience that RPG Site isn't going anywhere. It's not like people are like jumping ship
Right.
from
Nope.
site to the other. This is its own separate site. It's a sister site. So that we have our own thing. They have their own thing. We're not going anywhere.
No, yeah, they can come back when they get 300 podcast weekly episodes in a row.
That's right.
They have a
they're
lot of
starting
catching up
there.
to do.
They got 2 episodes up.
Yeah, look, but
Yeah.
if they don't do a break in December, then we're in trouble.
Oh, there we go. They're gonna catch up. But yeah, at least want to give them a shout out. And definitely, we'll see if it, we'll have our staff and contributors make cameos over there, and it might go the other way as well. We'll see. But yeah. With that, I think that covers all the games we wanted to talk about. That covers the articles I at least wanted to shout out. So we will go into news. All right. We, over the last couple months, have been waiting for the Microsoft fiscal year to flip over, which it does in July. And we had heard a lot of rumblings and rumors and well estimated speculation that there was going to be significant layoffs and downsizing at various Microsoft studios. We are finally now starting to see the actual result of that. But even then, it's an ongoing thing. It's not finalized. I'll try to tee this up here. The baseline is that in the new Microsoft fiscal year, Xbox has laid off about 1,600 developers across its suite of studios. As far as I can tell, no studio was safe, except for I don't think any explicit Activision cuts were announced, but they might be coming. But Blizzard, Obsidian, other studios that will go into more details on things like Double Fine and Ninja Theory were all affected. So 1,600 employees laid off, and
Well,
they're
no,
also
I
going to
want to make
divest.
something clear. I want to make something clear here. The 1,600 was at Xbox. It does not encompass the 1,600 number does not encompass the studios that were being branched off like Compulsion, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, and Undead Labs. Those are not part of the 1,600 because they're not. Those are just for the Xbox division, not for those studios that are
Uh,
branching off.
I was gonna go into the 5 studios they are divesting from as well, but
Yeah.
good context to say that it's this plus this, and they're not describing the same thing. Yeah,
Yes.
so I hope I get these studios here. It's Double Fine, it's Compulsion, it's Arcane, even though that one is, I guess, being a little bit slower because they have their
France has
European
better
French
labor
studio.
laws. That's
Yes.
why. Yeah, Arcane is going
Uh,
to Arcane Studios. Lyon is going undergoing consultations in France because that is French law that they have to do that.
yeah.
Um, like you said, Undead Labs, Compulsion Games, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory.
Yeah. So, and then The headline that we have here that is specific to our site is that one of the studios, Obsidian, has reportedly laid off about a quarter of their workforce. Um, and this is coming from Bloomberg and Jason Schreier and others saying that in progress work on Avowed 2 has been canceled. And there's a little more context on that. And then the studio is being pivoted to work on a Fallout game. And when I see this headline, it makes me like upset because it's terrible news. It really is. And then certain sites and even certain like readers are like, hell yeah, Obsidian's working on a Fallout game. And I'm like, really? That's what you take away from this? Like, so Obsidian, very basic context, worked on Fallout New Vegas a long time ago, like 13 years ago. They were purchased by Microsoft along with InXile Entertainment around, what was it, 2019? Right in the heart of the studio acquisition spree under Phil Spencer. Other places like Embracer were doing very similar things. Bethesda was also acquired, the current IP holder for Fallout by Microsoft. So now the idea that they could work on a Fallout game was something that was possible, but it seemed to be something that was just not in the cards, which I totally was on board with. It just seemed like they wanted to do their own things. They're working on Avowed with their own IP with the Pillars of Eternity. They were making independent projects like Outer Worlds and Grounded. But now it seems like that's being what I'm reading is that's being kind of suppressed, and they're saying, nope, we're going to focus on our tentpole franchises, and you're going to work on Fallout. That seems to be what they're pushing for. So other projects, we've already heard about the Avowed 2 team. Jason Schreier mentioned on one of his YouTube videos that this seems kind of interesting to me that Avowed 2 has been canceled internally, but they're still going to have a small number of people working on it. So the hopes that it gets uncanceled. Very interesting. And I'll see if I can get any more context on that. But I guess part of the other thing that I have to mention here to try to bring this all into context is that only half of the slated cuts to the workforce have been executed. There are 1,600 more planned cuts on the way. And as far as I can tell, it's no one working at a studio under Microsoft's umbrella knows when or where those are gonna land. So basically anyone working at not just Obsidian, but id also had a bunch of layoffs.
The id one's
Bethesda,
crazy. Yeah, the id one is
yeah, we'll go into
everything's
that.
coming out. Yeah.
So the people who are still working at these studios, they're like the way I'm interpreting this is that you could have been working on Avowed 2, being told, nope, you're working on Fallout now. Also, you might not have a job in 3 months. Like, good luck making your art or your programming or your music or your code or your Q, whatever you're working on. That is where the environment these people are working in now. Which how that's just I don't want to be miserly, but it's, that is awful, and I hate reporting on news like this. It's hard to be excited for any headline coming out of this. Golly gee, they're working on a Fallout game. It's like, at this point, at what cost? Like, I'm not excited for that. Not in this context.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that
like
one is that one's a bit.
the only like charitable argument I can see to people like talking about the Fallout stuff is saying if this was the inevitable end result, they should have just had forced them on the Fallout in the first place instead of like this whole song dance and the games aren't performing. But this is Microsoft we're talking about. No matter how the games did, because Microsoft is profitable, they did not need to cut these jobs. They're doing so anyway, regardless of how well the games may or may not have sold, especially considering like the whole Game Pass thing where it's like they do not like, and this is something people have been fucking talking about for years. If you make a game for Game Pass and you greenlight something thinking, oh, it's going to, maybe it won't sell well, but it adds like flavor to the service and it's like a mind share type thing, that's fine. But now, like, we've seen it happen time and time again. Like, it happened with fucking Hi-Fi Rush, where it's like, that game did not sell particularly great at launch because it was a shadow drop on Game Pass. And because of that, that's why the studio got shuttered until it got saved. And how is any company, how is any developer supposed to work under those guidelines where they're told one thing, they greenlit and develop a project under one understanding, and then because of the obvious end result of those decisions that they were told were okay, they were greenlit even and fully developed and released, if the end result is they lose their jobs because it's like, oh, we told you this is what we wanted, but actually it was this instead. And because you believed us when we told you the first thing, you're losing your job.
Yeah,
You know what this kind of you go first, then I'll go after you.
okay, yeah. So one of the things that that I've been hearing about in relation to how Josh Sawyer is wrapped up in this, obviously, as well as his most recent project was Pentiment. But I'm a frequent listener of the Nextlander podcast. The alumni Giant Bomb people, you know, run that podcast, and they had Lex Luddy on for a recent episode discussing this. And Lex Luddy's been contributes to current Giant Bomb and a lot of other places as well. Does fantastic reporting on that end. But and this was mentioned too in the news here. But like Sawyer was working on like a new IP that was not in the Fallout universe, but this new IP was definitely like certain aspects of it, like was Fallout adjacent esque. So there is some speculation and wondering, like, based on the timetable that they're working with, and obviously this is not like the main news story, but obviously this is part of the news as well, where like everyone's hoping that these developers aren't being crunched and worked to death. I'm sure like a good chunk of them are, but where people are wondering if they could like jury rig, like like the existing parts of this project that Sawyer was working on into like this Fallout initiative that Xbox has placed upon them. Is there still something workable that all the work that he's done on with all developers that are working on this adjacent project now being brought back into the full quote unquote official in this to at least lighten the load, so to speak.
And I get it from like Fallout is a franchise that hasn't had a main entry in over a decade, and even Fallout 76 was like 8 years ago at this point. It has a mega successful um, TV show series. So the general idea in a vacuum, divorced from all context, of we should leverage this successful IP makes sense. It does. But I don't know Josh personally. I did have the opportunity to interview him in person about a decade ago. It was around the time of not quite a decade ago. It was around the time of Pillars of Eternity 2. And I also got to interview some other people at the studio around the time Avowed was being no, was it Avowed? No, it was Outer Worlds 1. Um, and I remember when Outer Worlds 1 was announced, people were like, "Oh my god, this could be their Fallout," and it's really not Fallout like at all. Or when Avowed was announced, like, this could be their Elder Scrolls, and it really wasn't a lot of those comparisons are very surface level or superficial, and I always kinda got the feeling that Obsidian, this is my interpretation, not anyone told me this, that it almost felt like it was the overhanging specter of Elder Scrolls or Fallout was kind of like just burning the oxygen in the room, which is like, "We just wanna make a neat game, and it's called Avowed." It's like, "This is their Elder Scrolls." It's like, "It really isn't." "We wanna make a neat
Yeah.
game, it's Outer Worlds." "This is their Fallout." "It really isn't." Or like, Josh working on Pentiment, like, "Oh, now that you're done with Pentiment, are you gonna work on Fallout again?" Just kinda like, I'm sure Josh would love the opportunity to work on Fallout, but not under these circumstances, and I can't speak for him. But it just felt like it was always kind of like, yeah, sure, Avowed, but when Fallout, yeah, sure, Pentiment, but when Fallout, it just kind of like sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And I was like, well, now you don't get a choice. That's what you're going to work on. It reminds me a little bit of Raven Software, which, funnily enough, is underneath. I think they're nested under. They're in the Call of Duty mines at this point. Like they're a studio that worked on like in the 90s, like Hexen Heretic. I think they did like the Jedi Knight games. They had like a game around 2010 called Singularity. None of these were like world beaters, but they made like interesting first person games. And then they kind of got sucked into like, nope, you're a support studio to do Call of Duty, and that's where they've been for years. And maybe I don't work at the studio, of course. Maybe that's a really stable gig, but it just feels like he lost something. And I'm wondering, that's kind of what I'm feeling now is like, are we going to lose something if it's got to be a major franchise or it doesn't exist anymore? It's got to be Fallout or Elder Scrolls or
That's
something
definitely the
big.
Xbox initiative. That's the
Yep.
Xbox initiative now.
Yeah, so, like, Avowed, like, I reviewed it, I thought it was okay, it wasn't great, didn't make our top 10, I think it squeezed into my top 10, but, yeah, I would rather have a follow-up to something like that, where they could iterate and improve and then, like, "Oh, okay, I love Fallout New Vegas, but I'm not excited for a new Fallout game." That's just where I sit right now as a personal opinion, like, not like this, but anyways.
I'm not excited for anything Microsoft touches.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point. No, that's valid completely. Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, we mentioned the id cuts. Those are interesting too, because it feels like with the id story, I'm having trouble following it because it seems like something gets reported, then there's, like, damage control, then there's something else that gets reported that says, "No, actually, we had it right." Then there's, like, counter damage control, and it's just like so id, of course, have made a successful trilogy of games in the Doom series in terms of like in the co- in
The
the
modern
common video
Doom
game
series,
space.
rather.
Yeah, yeah. 2016 Doom Eternal, and then what's the new one? Damn it.
Dark Ages.
Dark Ages, yeah. And regardless of your personal opinion of it, to be able to release 3 high quality games
Mhm.
within a decade in 2016, some of them with like DLC and follow-ups, like that's a standard like both Obsidian and id. That's like half their output of Microsoft Studio. I don't know if it's actually half, but like releasing games and on a frequent clip that maybe they're not all game of the year winners at the game awards, but they're doing well. They're getting some praise. Maybe they're
That's the
not
part of
selling
having
10
like a
million
varied
copies.
a varied
Yeah.
portfolio, you know? Not everything has to be a fucking giga hit, you know, because you're part of the reason why you have a varied portfolio is so you're not baking everything into one or two things, and if those don't work out, there's a total collapse. You're making a portfolio of numerous smaller scope various things, so like even if one doesn't work out, the others are there to pick up the slack, and you know, and give more variety to the consumers as well. So there's different sectors of the consumers who flock to different parts of it to sustain that ecosystem. That's the it's kind of business 101, but okay.
And then, like, and so the reports on this have been stated and then contested. So I don't know where it lies right now because a lot of this is just, journalists with their, anonymous sources, people confide to them in confidence what they are aware of about how many people have been affected at like, for instance, at the id Engine team because Doom is famously on id Tech. id Tech's also used for Machine Games, another like ZeniMax studio, Wolfenstein and recent Indiana Jones. And so basically, just like a very core talent that has like institutional knowledge of we developed id Tech, we use id Tech to make really good, well performing first person games, not just Doom, but like Wolfenstein and Indiana Jones as well. Indiana Jones was the closest thing they had to a Game of the Year candidate in the last couple of years. It was really well received. And then just to talk about how much they lost in that tech sector, it just feels like cutting your nose to spite your or what's the term? Spiting your nose to spite your face. I've got the term completely messed up. Anyways, Adam, cut that out. uh,
Cutting off your
but
nose just
it
to
just
spite
feels
your
very
face.
there you go. It's short-sighted. And then there was like some like, no, we actually have plenty of id Tech knowledge across our studios. Don't worry. And it just felt like weird, like damage control messaging. But it just seems like, is that really true? It just seems so short-sighted. I'll just leave it at that in terms of, do you have enough studio talent back at it or at Machine Games or wherever to shepherd this capability that you've built up over decades? Or is everyone just going to go to Unreal Engine 6 and get AI glamified character models because and all
Uh,
homogenized garbage? Well, that's not. I guess that's not Unreal.
uh,
That's NVIDIA DLSS.
it's just a real shame, like, you know, because id Tech is like from engineers and people who worked with it. They'll even give you first hand like accounts of like this is the real shit. This is like there's like from my understanding, like there's never really been like a big like complaint against id Tech in terms of like working with it, the support, and general like you know I'm sure it has faults, but when you're comparing against like other engines and tech across the industry, it was top notch. It was prestige. It was well regarded, and to lay off much of the talent behind uh operating that and sustaining that is I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's insane. So
It's
yeah,
interesting because I remember id Tech 5, I think it was 5, was famously kind of it used, like, weird mega texture and I can't speak to the technical aspects, but it had some interesting, behavior because of the way it handled textures. But then, like, id Tech 6 and 7 feels like they're really like, those games run really well, even they scale on hardware very well. It's like Doom, Wolfenstein 2, Indiana Jones. Since 2020, I think was id Tech 6, and 2024 was id Tech 7, something like that. Which is like the opposite of Unreal, where Unreal 4 seemed like it fixed all the problems with Unreal 3, and then Unreal 5 is like, "Never mind, I hope you enjoy free shader compilation, and you'll stutter regardless. Good luck."
and it's also
But that's what
crazy
we're
because
all
like
moving to.
because all this id stuff happened as a Doom the Dark Ages DLC was launching as well.
And
So
not
it's
only launch, but launch to, like, 90% Metacritic, and I know
yeah,
Metacritic isn't the end all be all, but a well-received not a game expansion in this case, but it's not like these are studios that are struggling to make good things. I guess that's
yeah.
the bottom line. These are studios making good things, saying, "Congrats, you don't have a job anymore."
It's
It's really sad.
uh and then as part of this, as we mentioned earlier, those 5 studios, uh the updates on those is Ninja Theory and Undead Labs will have new ownership. They haven't, obviously this all coming in hot, so they're not ready to announce like what are the details of that new ownership. But it seems like whatever terms they're hashing out this new ownership, they'll be able to um finish their upcoming announced games that was announced at the Xbox thing at not too long ago, the Senua and State of Decay 3. Um so, you know, at least there's that. Like we said already, Arcane Studios is doing consultations in France. Double Fine and Compulsion, I believe, are going back to going independent, self ownership. I believe word on them. And I want to make one thing clear for people: like going indie again after divesting from Xbox and Microsoft sounds good on paper because it makes you maybe feel good. I would like to point them over to that Double Fine documentary that was released years ago as part of the Psychonauts 2 launch, and where the studio talks about how fucking difficult it is to be an independent studio, and why they agreed to be purchased by Microsoft because they wouldn't have survived much longer if they didn't get, if they didn't.
Kind of speaking of independent studios, I remember when Obsidian was independent, and they kind of felt like they were just, used and abused and tossed around from publisher to publisher
They're like mercenaries. Yeah.
for their entire life, since the inception of the studio. And back when they were acquired in like 2018, I thought maybe this is good. They can have some stability because they were like I said, kind of just used and abused from Bethesda and Paradox and Sega and whoever else they worked with. It's not all roses, right?
Yeah,
Well, that was before, like, the exponential scale of the acquisitions took place. Not that
Yeah.
corporate consolidation is ever
It
good,
was one of the
but there's a
earliest
difference between
acquisitions.
Microsoft buying Obsidian and inXile, then scaling up by, like, a factor of 10
Activision.
to acquiring Bethesda, and then a scaling up by another factor of 10 to acquire Activision King. Like, it was just like, Jesus, we
and
didn't
it's
know that
a
that's the trajectory we were on.
and it's also like a reminder as well that like even doing this move, especially at the state of games market it is these days, where funding has fucking dried up everywhere to fund these projects, um is all you can hope and pray for is best of luck, man. To We really hope that
Well,
all
there's
these studios will succeed and come out of this at the better end. But it's just like
Well,
it's one
there's,
of
like, a
those things like
knock-on effect too, even if you are independent, like, IO Interactive, who just released the,
First Light.
well-received First Light game, had layoffs because and I don't know all the details of this, but they had a publishing agreement with Microsoft for Project Fantasy, which got cut, which meant their stability was upended, like, basically a ripple effect of having to work with Microsoft on one of their projects. Like, nope, I guess that's not happening. And then I forget
I
where I
believe
heard
there's
this
an
too,
update
but,
on
like
that. There's an update on that
okay.
just the past few days where like Project Fantasy is still on like obviously without the partnership with Xbox, but I believe IO Interactive is still still gonna try to commit to working on that. That was an update
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah, the project's not canceled. It's just they lost their partner.
They had
Basically,
layoffs because and like the 1600 times 2 Microsoft like layoffs also. I don't think we'll ever quite know the true number, and I forget if it was Daniel Ahmad or Jason Schreier who said this, but like when you're a support studio that's contracted to do very specific work and you're not an employee of Microsoft, like well, then you end up just being in a footnote of Microsoft is laying off 1,600 employees and as part of this restructuring, they're canceling this and this and this contract, which means, oh, you're a studio that's working on a specific, middleware animation thing that was going to contribute to one of those. You're also out of work, but you're just kind of a casualty at that point that's not listed, and stuff like that. Like we'll never know the true impact. Well, maybe we'll eventually know, but it's hard to measure the true impact of these things in raw numbers when there's so many facets like that could just fall through the cracks or come along for the ride. It's really depressing.
Yeah, man. Who knows? Who knows what the fucking future holds, especially with anything Microsoft and the Xbox division touches these days.
Yep. Leaving a break for the timestamp. And in other news related about projects that are still underway that have long dormant, this is one I actually haven't been following very closely. This is about Cygames Project Awakening that we mentioned just in passing when talking about Endless Ragnarok. Josh, bail me out
Yeah.
here. Like this is a
Yeah.
game I know that's been long in like development. I don't want to say development hell, just development's been in the works for a while, very dormant. But we got some recent information that basically says that it is still on track. Well, I don't know about on track, but still being worked on.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Like this particular news story is from CG World, Japanese outlet, where Cygames was mentioning it's still in development. It's now using Unreal Engine 5, but the bulk of this news, like I actually worked with Sal Romano on this, who runs Gamatsu, but this past issue, Famitsu, was commemorating the 50th anniversary of Cygames, and they had like a whole big feature like in that issue, commemorating the Cygames' history in that regard. And there's actually a feature about their dormant projects, which includes Project Awakening, Lost Order, and Garnet Arena Mages of Magicary. And but all three of these games, like, were presumed, or at least it speculated, to be canceled into some capacity, especially Lost Order, which was like a real-time tactics game like for mobile that I played a closed beta test of like 2017, 2018-ish, maybe. And that just went like silent, and I just assumed it was canceled. But apparently they're all still being worked on in some capacity, and none of them have been canceled. And Cygames even mentioned, unless we specified specifically that a project has been canceled, it's not canceled. It's still being worked on. So part of this feature was like there were new interviews from Famitsu to Cygames about these project, and uh, for example, on Lost Order, one of the Cygames reps, Watanabe, mentioned like it's deep in development, it's now entering the final stretch, and then as we saw with Project Awakening, it's moved over to Unreal Engine 5. This was also announced like I think the initial teaser like 2016, and then we got like some glimpses here and there throughout like 2018, 2019, even like around 2021 as part of like some tech conference, but not really real firm details on like, hey, where is it at? Is it playable? Has it come out? Who knows? And then the Garnet Arena Mages of Magicary is by Kenichiro Takaki, who used to work on the Senran Kagura series, who joined Cygames several years ago now. It's like around 2020-ish, 2021. And
yeah, what happened to that game too? I remember
it's still
that,
being
like,
developed. Like it's still in development in that regard. So it's just one of those things that's like interesting to see like an update on these games that are like have been very dormant for a long time, and we're all looking forward to seeing like, hey, oh, these are projects are alive. Let's see what Cygames brings to the table. Cygames seems to be very committed to like home console game, like
I mean,
Project Awakening. Go for it.
especially after how well Relink sold and is continuing to sell with the expansion. Like you can just look at the player counts, like rebounding on Steam and the global top sellers and whatnot. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. I
Yeah,
would not be shocked if next week we get the confirmation that Relink has sold 3 million copies or something like that. So,
that'd be awesome if they did. But yeah, there's also their fighting game for Granblue, the Versus Rising, and also the global release of Uma Musume, which also has a Steam client as well. But yeah, out of these, Project Awakening and the Garnet Arena, I believe, are coming to home consoles. Lost Order, it's been in. I thought this was canceled for sure, so this was like, oh shit, it's still alive. Um, I forgot if this was with Platinum Games or not originally back then. This was another project. There was another project they're working Platinum Games on. I believe that was Lost Order. I don't know. I don't know if Platinum is still involved in this regard, but when that reemerges, is it still a mobile game? Is it mobile NPC, much in the way that like Uma Musume is? Who knows?
Yeah, Lost
Um,
Order was the originally co-developed Platinum Games. Who knows if it
yeah,
still is? But that's what you had it. Your memory was correct.
uh, I remember too much of this. Of this, but yeah, I'm looking forward to like hearing more of these projects. Like Cygames seems like to have a good head on their shoulders, at least in this regard, and they develop some high quality stuff. I also commend them on like their business moves, like with their fighting game, like with Versus Rising, for example, because that game has a free to play version that has like characters on rotation that you can play online. So even if you're like just want to check out the game and like you can become like a regular player of that game without paying a cent if you just like install the free to play version and just play the characters on rotation. You just want to mess around with some characters and play online here and there with the new rotational characters. But like the grand is always going to be free as part of that rotation. But like no other big fighting game is like doing that in that regard. I kind of wish more games kind of did that. That seems like a
Didn't
smart
Dead
model.
Alive to do that? They have
The core fighters,
yeah. Wasn't that the same kind of concept, or is that
yeah,
not
same
completely
kind of
the same?
concept, but that is also sinister in some ways as well. Not like it has worse netcode, but also just like Dead or Alive is going through its own shit right now. Let's just say with its re-release of Last Round. We won't get into that abyss, but yes, they did have like a similar free to play model.
And then this one I didn't know was coming. I don't know if this was a surprise. Chow, you'll have to help me out on this one because I think you are the expert here. Arknights Enfield is getting an expansion in like a week, or at least like a named content update called Homecoming. Uh, I glanced through the like the press release and talking about adding 2 new map areas and 2 new operators, as well as what they called like activities or challenges. So I don't know if this is a game you're still like up to date on, if this is something you're personally looking forward to or not.
I still play Arknights. Not as heavily invested as the beginning
Enfield or
because
just a mobile game?
and Enfield. I don't play the OG
Okay.
Arknights. I
Okay.
uninstalled OG Arknights like in an hour. But but I play Enfield. I think I have every character but one. The one character I don't have in this game is Tong Tong. that's basically it. But I still play it, and what this expansion includes is like 2 operators that people were kind of like hype up for. One is Arcane. Arcane's kind of like um, she's like a what is it? She trained with Chen in the storyline, but because of some kind of thing happened to them, they kind of like drifted apart. And then when they come back, they have to team up and work together to stop the main villain, kind of thing. And she kind of used her like superpowers to like seal up the main villain and being trapped with him. And then there's a whole story arc to try to rescue her back, and that's kind of like her stick. And the other character, I don't know who this other character is. This is someone completely new, or at least I haven't fully finished the current story arc that I met this new character that they're introducing, this Lulino, I believe that's her name. But I don't know anything about this character at the moment. And everything else is just like your typical expansion. It's like more stuff, more content. Yeah, I
What is the
see.
general vibe these days of Enfield? This came out late January. What
I
is like the state of the game?
I think the state of the games it's kind of like in a poor state. There's a lot of content drought, like pretty quick. I mean, like if you play like Genshin or Roaring Waves, you usually hit the content drought around like 6 to 7 patches in. Like this game's hitting content drought within 3 patches in, so it's kind of not like a good thing, I would say. Like people were even like, kind of like making fun of it in like the gotcha forum, saying, "Hey, this game is making less revenue than the OG, like Arknights game or something like that."
Hmm.
But I think the game. There's nothing wrong with the game. I think the game's fine. I think it's just kind of lacking in content, and then there
Well, I
isn't
mean,
like
it's getting an expansion in a week,
yeah.
so maybe that'll be what it needs.
And then it's like recently they added this new like end game challenge where it's kind of like you're kind of putting a handicap on yourself. I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's like Genshin had it. It's like you kind of like you challenge all these enemies in the time limit, and you like try to put all these handicaps, and you get more score with the handicaps that you self-impose to yourself, right? It's like you do less damage, or this enemy will one-shot you, or stuff like that. You just keep like adding like these penalties to yourself to stack up more points, right? And that's kind of like one of their more recent endgame challenges. And they added that, but I think in the current state, I think the game is very, it's kind of like, I don't know what it wants to be at the moment. It's like, is it more focused on like exploring? Is it more focused on like the factory building? I just don't know what this game wants to be at the moment. I think I'm kind of confused with the game. I like playing it.
As
Like
as someone who only watched like the pre-release trailers, like what percent of the game is like the factory building part of it? Because they really focused heavily on that, like pre-release. Is that a big component of the game, or is it more just like a side activity?
I think if you want to make the best out of your gameplay, you have to engage with the factory building because you can't craft the best gear unless you engage with it. So you have to like spend all this time like building all these factory, and you're not like very good at that stuff. It's like obviously you're just gonna copy some factory blueprint from some content creator and just use it to build from there.
Oh yeah,
But I
over super optimize it. This is how to make the best factory with the fewest
yeah,
materials or whatever.
like I said, you cannot like I don't really engage in it because I don't really care for that stuff. So I just copy some random guys like design, just use it on myself, and once I'm able to like get the ultimate gear, it's like okay, then I just completely leave it off alone,
Can
right?
you actually share designs in game, or is it more just like following a tutorial?
You could share the design. You can copy someone's ID and copy it,
Oh,
but
okay.
nothing goes directly as just straightforward copying. Because in the new region, you have to like build these water pipes and connect the water to the pipes manually, and so you can't just like directly copy someone's blueprint one to one. You have to like I don't know, something you had to like watch someone's YouTube video to see where they're connecting all the pipes and all that stuff,
This
right?
reminds me
But
of the outpost building in Starfield, where I tried to engage with it, but at some point I got like fed up with the UI. I'm just like, YouTube, just tell me what buildings to put where in what order to get the most whatever per minute, and they're like, do this. Like, okay, yes, turn brain off. But yeah.
yeah, like I showed my friend, and it's like he said this looks so complicated. It looks like it's created by some world famous chemist or something like this.
Whenever I play those games, it's like I'm gonna work really hard to build like a really intricate thing, and then it ends up being like a two-story house with a ladder. And I'm like, I'm proud of myself. And then you go to your friend or you're online, and they've got like a fortress with like automatic doors and like moving walkways and like glass windows or like big glass domes, and you're like, oh, I'm apparently just a pleb. I'm never building anything again. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe we'll wrap back around next week or the week after once you play through the expansion, just to see if you think it was enough to address the content concerns or not.
Yeah.
Just a couple trailers here. Xenoverse 3 got a new trailer. I don't know, Adam, if this is basically just kind of showing the things that you already described for what you saw at SGF. But we do
I
have
did
it up on the
not see this
site.
trailer. Probably.
Yeah. Okay, I would maybe go through it a little bit more, but you kind of went in pretty good detail on a previous episode, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the gameplay loop and how it's framed. Persona 4 Revival is very in the middle of its media blitz. I think it's gone through a few character trailers. It was Rize last week, and this week it's Yosuke. Primarily, my use of these trailers as someone who's not sure if they're going to play this game is that it gives you an extended listen for the new English voice cast. Yosuke sounds like Yosuke, even though it's a different actor. So it's like, oh, that sounds kind of like what he sounded like in English before.
Now, I'm saying this off the top of my head, so I don't remember the source of this. But there was apparently some comment that they are going to make some changes to Yosuke's character, which is most likely, how he reacts to like kanji. That's what people are hoping, and like I forget what the comment was. And again, I'm saying this off the top of my head, but maybe like just to be blunt, make Yosuke a little bit less homophobic because that's definitely needed. So
I mean,
yeah, the problem that I do think that some of the concerns about like sanding, like instead of like completing the character arc, like just sanding down, like it's tough. I've seen some people mention that there's some other stuff that people have noticed and changes, like for example, the enemies in like Kanji's dungeon have had their designs changed a little bit. It's gonna be interesting to see what's
Shadow
changed.
kanji, instead of holding
Yeah,
two
yeah.
male symbols, it's a male and a female symbol.
Yeah, so it's like definitely going to be changes. I'm just curious to see how that shakes out.
So for the
yeah, I
sources
know.
of
I know.
these, it's from an interview with Anime Corner. Anime Corner had a recent interview during Anime Expo with the Persona 4 revival producer Kazuhisa Wada. Talked about different changes to the revival. He explained that the team hadn't changed that much about the story or the characters' thoughts or how they act or anything. Then adding that the changes were quote unquote mostly with Yosuke really. And then obviously they didn't really get too into the details of like what's being changed.
Mm.
You know what I want changed? Probably the Hanako character. I think she was kind of removed. I think she's like the worst character in Persona games.
I'm always kind of torn on like changes from the source material in terms of like it's a remake. How like should we just go for it because it's a remake? It's not a remaster. Where do you
Or
draw the line in that regard? I mean,
well, I was
can
gonna
we
say,
all just like or is there like a sector of like can we all just be grown ups because it was a product of its time and not necessarily all the
yeah,
games representative or not are reflective of like what should be acceptable in the modern day, etc. Not to say that it was acceptable back then, but like
I see some animes
it's not
that
like
that do
historical
stuff.
stories, right? Like historical stories, like you like if there's like a story, a show, a movie, a book that is like historical fiction that is trying to depict like a realistic like the values of an era in time. Obviously, the values of the people in that time shouldn't be like fitted so it's a more acceptable in the modern day if you're trying to make a compel like a realistic time period depicted, etc. I'm always very 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 torn on like this kind of stuff because like
I was just gonna say,
where does it stop? Where does it stop then on these changes?
I was just gonna say, there's one anime I watched. It was called Iron Walk, Jan, and at the end of the episode,
Mhm.
it has like this warning. It's like this is a product of 1995, or this is a manga adaptation that was made in 1995, and not everything that happens in the show will accommodate to modern sensibilities or something like that. That's what the warning is at the end. I
Mhm.
I know
wonder if
it's a
like some video games
platitude.
would do something like that.
I know it's a platitude at this point, but like it all depends on the execution. I hope they
Mhm.
don't just because there's definitely it's a lot easier to do wrong than to do right because they could just sand it down and just avoid the issue entirely. He never says anything controversial. They just flanderize him to the goofy, he's basically like the I don't know, not proxy protagonist, but since the protagonist is mute, Yosuke does a lot of the speaking, is kind of what I mean. So he just
Yeah.
could end up being that silly, slightly immature character, but never says anything that's too controversial, just completely sanded down. Like, I don't know if I want that, but I also don't want it to be like super, kludgy moralistic either. So it's just one of those things where it's like there's so many ways to do this wrong and so few ways to do it well that whenever they say they're changing something, I'm with Josh, where it's just like, we'll see how the outcome turns out to see how
Yeah.
it lands.
It's kind of one of those things. Like, would you have noticed if they didn't say anything? That is also a factor.
I think I would notice in this game. I played it a lot back in the day, so I think
Well, we'll see. Like imagine and throughout this like 80-hour RPG, they changed one or two lines about the character. It's like, would you really have noticed that? Really? I mean, depends.
A couple updates here. We don't usually cover like when we say updates, like patches or just like game updates, unless they have something like interesting to talk about. And these two both have something kind of interesting. So the first one is the Switch 2 version of Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader from Alcat. This released on Switch 2. I think it was earlier this year or late last
It
year.
was December.
December. And basically, I reviewed this game on PC, and I reviewed it like a month after it came out on PC, and it was a technical, not mess, but not polished. And then it released on Switch 2, and Mikhail reviewed the Switch 2 version, and it was, in Mikhail's terms, dog shit. But apparently that kind of was like, I never want to use anyways. That was received by Alcat, and they basically said like, "Hey, we realized that what we released was not up to par. We are going to send out a major update." And I don't know like the status of the update and how much it's improved the game on Switch 2. But the key thing here is that this is part of their press release. In order to make up for the disappointment of the initial launch, starting today, all additional in-game content is free on the Switch 2. The first two DLCs are available, and the third and upcoming fourth DLC will follow later. So it's implying that basically all DLC, both current and upcoming, for the Switch 2 version of this game is being made free as kind of like an apology or like an olive branch for the state that the game released in on Switch 2, that's a rare thing to see. Like, I don't know if that's the right thing, but it's kind of like it does exude some sense of like trying to make good,
Now they
which
confirmed
is
on
interesting.
Reddit that it is for current and upcoming DLC on Switch 2. So like it's all
Okay.
DLC. Now the thing I'm kind of wondering about is like, okay, the third DLC comes out and it's like, or I think the third DLC is out on PC now, but it's like it costs money on PC, but it's free on Switch, which is like it's like almost like an intentional like difference, which is a little bit unusual,
Yeah,
right?
it's a unique situation, and it's one of those things where it's like I don't think I can fault it, and I don't think you're right to say, well, therefore it's got to be free everywhere. But it's just like, okay, like if you've released a game for whatever reason, schedule pressures, project pressures, and it's not up to par, and it's technically kind of it's poor word of mouth. This is one of the things that they could do to say like, hey, we realize we didn't hit what we wanted, and this is what we're going to try to do to make it up to you. So like, I think I'm okay with that. I'm interested to hear other arguments, but like, I think it's not a bad thing, but it is an interesting thing that we don't have a lot of precedent for.
I want to hear like what was how many Switch 2 players actually stuck with this game when it first came out? Like, what was their actual population at the end of the day when it
Yeah.
released? Pre update and then post update. Did people actually come back and like give this version a shot with these optimization updates? Like, well, I'm kind of very interested in like what was the player base on Switch 2 like numbers wise? Just because Mikhail went nuts about the state of this game when it came out on Switch 2. Like
Yeah.
it was like he was so pissed off. It was really funny. But oh man. And like you can even see in some of the comments too in that port review. It's like, yeah, I immediately refunded it, like, from one of our commenters there. Like once I saw he's like
Mhm.
the worst port I've played in years.
Mhm. And then this other update is much quicker to digest. The Adventures of Elliot version 1.1 now has included the option to turn off the voice of your support character.
I will get the superior experience with this game when I eventually get around to it. That's what
Yes.
I learned. I once again
You've
I
you've
am
you've earned that, Josh, with how many times it's been the opposite way.
yeah, that's right.
I did
Finally.
like my least favorite part about this. So we already talked about that Faye had an option to be like talkative or reticent or whatever, but not off, and would the 10th time you stood on a moving platform, she would be like, "This platform's moving. It'll take you where you need to go." I was like, I know how a moving platform works. So now you have the option to turn it off. But then I saw like I forget if it was in our staff chat or in the general chat, but like different other gaming websites being like Square Enix RPG adds much requested update to new feature, or like it framed it in the most pro ZD actor joins film sort of way ever. And I'm like, just say that you could turn the sound of the
It's not
voice of the
clickbaity
support
enough.
character off. Yeah, it's like if you follow rpgsite.net and respec.net, we will not use clickbait headlines like that. I can't speak for respec, but the goal is to not use
Yeah, I don't think uh,
headlines like that. So
um, it's just one of those things, like one of those features that's like I understand that like game development is extremely hard. I understand, but this should have been a day one feature.
It feels
The
like
fact
it
that
was
the fact that by their own admission they did not realize how it looked to people outside the dev team. And honestly, I'll be not the first, because I definitely have seen people mention this like before I have. This is also an overreaction. I think that not having a toggle to just make it so that only like event or story dialogue they comment on is a misstep. Because people didn't have an issue with that. They had an issue with the fairy constantly talking about what you were doing that very second.
it feels like they could have tweaked the reticent setting more to be tuned up or something. Go ahead, Adam.
like even with the very first demo, which was the Switch 2 demo, I saw some people talking about this. So like it's been a while. Like this, I doubt this caught them by surprise necessarily. Like,
Yeah.
oh, people don't like this because it like there was some feedback early on.
Yeah, there's definitely survey feedback from that initial like demo that they when they first revealed the game. Like I am sure a good percentage of those feedback forums was like, "Hey, can you please add an option to like turn off like the voice of this fairy?" I don't really need to.
It definitely reads to me as they got that feedback and thought, "Oh, they'll get used to it. We'll just slightly we'll have an option to slightly turn it down." And then they saw the reviews and the launch criticism, and then they had to actually realize, "Oh no, we should have listened the first time."
And I'm sure some of the developers on that team were just like, "I fucking told you." I'm just thinking that.
Yeah, it's probably harder to implement than we might imagine. It's not just just turn
Yeah,
it
for
off,
sure.
right? So, but
But there's there's definitely a lot of like time leeway, like when you're talking about the timeline of the development of this game. Like, I'm sure it was not impossible to implement this since that initial demo. But hey, it's here. Better late than never. I mean, so I get.
I mean, within a month of
release.
release, like they did get it. And speaking very generally, like I obviously don't work in the game industry for my day job, but sometimes there are long projects that extend years, and a lot of decisions are made by disparate people very quickly. And then sometimes you kind of lose the forest for the trees. You really do. So I could see something like that happening. Though you didn't argue, but they had a demo. Like that is kind of like the counterbalance is that like if they didn't have a demo, you could say like, oh, maybe this is something that their internal QA team just did not focus on. They focused on other things. But you got it. I guess line in the sand. They addressed it in a way, and now you have the option if you choose to choose it.
I will get to hear the BGN uninterrupted and get to explore at my own leisurely pace. I'll have to see his text on the screen. Go thumbs up.
Also, I still don't think Adventures of Elliot is like a great game, but I will say that it is the rare game that my opinion of it improved when I beat it. Just kind of a generic micro review. I wasn't feeling too hot on it, and then after I played it, I was like, you know what, that was all right. I ended up feeling decent about it. So there you go, my micro review of Elliot. All right, just a handful of dates here at the very end. In just a couple weeks, or in 1 week, Square Enix will be holding I say Square Enix because I associate them with Star Ocean now. I think it's Square Enix.
Did they have the
Yeah, it is
IP?
Square Enix.
Yeah, they have the IP.
Yeah. I was like, is it Square Enix or is it Triace? It's both, I guess. Anyways, to not bury the lead, they'll be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Star Ocean series with a special live stream on YouTube on July 19th. In the fine print, they have already stated that there will be no reveals of a brand new game. Some people have already said, like, well, of course, because they're going to be remaking a game or, things like that.
They'll be showing off an old game. That's why.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm the sort of person that like I appreciate the candor. Like I think that sort of footnote is fine just to like align expectations. And I also think it's fine for anniversaries just to celebrate
What
the
already
series.
came.
Like
Yeah.
a a 25th anniversary. Like whenever I see like social media things, like do you think whatever publisher you want, Nintendo or Square Enix or whoever will announce a new thing on the 20th anniversary of this series. It's like they don't have to. They can just celebrate the series. That's allowed. Like, show off some new art, have voice actors or developers there. Like that's also cool. So regardless of what we get, regardless of whether or not we get an announcement out of this, having a 30th anniversary celebration is cool. But I do appreciate that they say, hey, align expectations. We're not announcing anything new.
That's right. My Millennium expectations. They're gonna announce Star Ocean 3 for modern platforms. That's not a brand new
They're going
game.
to announce Star Ocean 4 HD 2D.
Yeah, that's what everyone wanted. Cool.
The monkey's paw curls.
That's so
Okay.
funny. But
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, it's like in general, like it's hard to believe that Star Ocean is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Like it's like, man, where has time gone? In that regard, and it's also weird to think that like, and this is not to be a dig at Star Ocean, but in general, only 2 games of that series is especially beloved.
Yeah. Which 2
But-
games?
Star Ocean 2 is probably the consensus.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Yeah.
Star
And then
Ocean
the
4.
second
I'm
one
just
is always
curious
up in the air. I think it's Star Ocean 3, but some people say it's the first Star Ocean.
Yeah.
But no one
Yeah,
will go to bat Star Ocean 4 though. For the second.
I don't think anyone will bat for Star Ocean 4 or 5.
Whoa,
1 is
was gonna say-
okay, but a product of its time. 3 has a few caveats, and 6 was all right. It's
It's
like
all
it
right.
has 1 good game, 3 all right games, and 2 not great games.
Did we not count the
Some
spinoffs?
flavor of
What
that.
about Blue Sphere? The Game
No
Boy
one
Color?
played Blue Skirt Chow.
I played it. I really screwed up the long-haired guy's stat growth because it worked weird in that game. I forget that guy's name.
Diaz?
Yes, yeah, I screwed up his stats in that game. I made him useless.
It's
over.
But hey, shout out to Star Ocean, and just because there's no announcement anniversary doesn't mean there won't be maybe future announcements. Like for example, remember that Live Alive anniversary event? It's like there's no game for Live Alive here. There's no re-release, and then they
And there was
showed
a
off at,
freaking
Nintendo Direct.
remake.
Yeah. It was like showed off at a Nintendo Direct, I believe, like the HD 2D remake.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But like at this point, it's like I think a Blue Sphere remake would be okay. I mean, I wouldn't think they would like go back and demake a game, right? I mean, that would be.
I just want to
something
re-release
insane.
Star Ocean 3. I think that was. I think Star Ocean 3 is like such a cool game. Like, cause like it does a lot of things that like no other RPG really tries to do in terms of like mechanically. Like, sure, there's like the insane crafting system in it, but I think one of the special parts about that game is you can die because you run out of MP in that. And like
And
if
you can also
your
kill
MP goes to
enemies that way,
zero,
too.
yeah, your MP, yeah, and you can kill bosses like that. There are bosses that have absurd HP pools because the gimmick to them is to attack them through their MP, and that's how you beat them. And I'm like, that's fucking cool.
If you can't weapon craft like a random ass weapon that like increases your damage by like 50 times beyond what it should be at a point in the game, are you really playing a Star Ocean game?
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
And I agree with you, especially like if the game is stuck on a legacy console and isn't available to play, I'm regardless of the quality of the game, like I think getting those to be playable in a modern
Yeah.
setting is
Yeah.
always like I don't think I will ever say no, don't do that.
Yeah,
should do that.
and oddly enough, when you think about like which ones are missing, it's like it's the odd numbered ones. It's 1, 3, and 5.
5 is an interesting one because like it released at a time when I'm trying to remember, was 4 on PC at that point? It felt
I
like
don't know.
5 not being on PC was kind of a weird omission.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Star Ocean 5 is one of those weird like PlayStation 4 exclusives, and it still is.
Yep.
Integrity and faithlessness. What a subtitle.
Better than Infinite Undiscovery.
That is kind of a Star Ocean game and hard, kind of. Put that game on PC. Like I said, I don't care how bad it is.
I'll play it.
Yeah, I would. Let's see. For release dates, only have one listed here. Mortal Shell 2 is launching on August 20th.
They're really proud of the British rock band that they used in this trailer, I guess.
I guess I did not watch the actual
I didn't
announcement
either,
trailer.
but
What do you mean?
they I forget the rock band's name.
Paradise Lost.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a rock head, so I don't know these
Huge
people.
Granblue reference. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, they have a British metal band in their trailer here. They're really proud of it.
Okay.
It's set to the song. The trailer's song is Darker Thoughts.
Very edgy.
And then we kind of mentioned this in passing, talking about mobile games in the Suikoden series. Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis is shutting down on October 6th.
That's it. The crisis has been evered.
Hey,
Look,
it lasted more than 2 years. That's a long time.
For us, yeah, so
Sorry,
Square Enix
time.
mobile game in the West.
I saw some people joking like, "Oh, I can't wait for the console like offline port version thing, the Octopath Zero of Final Fantasy VII Ever
I
Crisis."
think people who the people who want an offline version of this have not played this game.
Yeah.
Because it is a poor retelling of the Final Fantasy VII works that it's presenting, like the ones that have existed. The FF7 version that's represented in Ever Crisis is not the ideal FF7 game release that you want, because it's very abridged clips of segments in that game. It's not like a full-fledged like RPG playthrough. It's very abridged, like segmented parts of that game.
Just has a hatred for like a Final Fantasy VII remake, and they just want anything that could resemble the OG FF7 story in retelling, and they'll just take whatever this is. But you know what's the thing that makes me sad though? It's the Before Crisis.
Yeah, like I don't know how well it'll do the Before Crisis, because there's gonna have Before Crisis stuff in there, I guess, according to the roadmap. Like they still have a roadmap before it shuts down, which is really funny.
But do you think they could get the entire Before Crisis story in 3 months?
It's like being added through three updates, and from what I played, based on like the length of those like chapters, hell no, it's gonna be a really poor abridged version of that, which is not ideal. Like obviously the ideal is like those releases getting their own treatment as like built from the ground up for a seamless experience, and not through a fucking mobile game model. I don't want to experience these like in. If they were to release an offline version of this, that would not be the ideal structure I'd want to engage with these stories in. I think the big real loss, aside from those, projects that should be their own standalone works built from the ground up, the real loss of this one is that whole first soldier story that has Glenn and younger Sephiroth.
I was actually going to ask, like, for two things. One is a statement, one's a question. Statement is like, my memory of this game is so foggy. I just remember like running on a beach with Glenn and his two pals, whose name I forget, like killing like alligators or something. Like that's my memory of this game. And then like, what the hell will they do with Glenn in Revelation? And does anyone care? Glenn
Not
just like standing off against Rufus in the second game, and it's like, what are you here for? What are you adding to this story? I don't know. What are they gonna do with him in the third game?
Glenn will be the reason that Rufus joins your party. I don't know how the fuck they do it, but if that's what happens, then Glenn's existence is justified if Rufus joins the party.
They're gonna have a whole entire playable Rufus section when fucking Diamond Weapon blows up the Shinra headquarters.
Yeah, this, like I said, not surprising. I mean, this is kind of the Square Enix mobile game life cycle. And I'm sure all the loyal Dissidia Duellum players are like, ooh, are we okay? Are we doing okay? Can anyone in the room tell us tell us that we're doing okay?
No, they'll announce it on Square Enix mobile title just right before the EOS tag there. So there's always a new one in the block.
I mean, they just have Dissidia Duellum. Now they have that Dragon Quest Smash and Grow. What other ones are still in service now? At least in the West. I mean, they stopped more up in Japan, but at least in the West, those are the only ones that come to mind.
I don't know, they always get shut down, so it's hard to like tell which one's what. Like I remember there was TAC, but I think TAC is also shut down, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think TAC is shut down in the West. I don't know about Japan. think it might be. Not 100% sure on that. Like that's the hard part about it too, is because like some of them stay up fairly long in Japan because they do well over there but they still can.
Is Brave Exvius still going? Nope, it's discontinued.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's the one that's been discontinued. That's the one that's actually like gone on for fucking ever. Also, the reason why I have Final Fantasy Resonance.
What about the Saga games? Are they still in Japan?
I think Re-Universe shut down. I think I know the Western release did. Even when it got like paired with another
Yeah,
server. I think
the
Re-Universe is
the global version ended a service, but when they say global, that basically means Western, right? Because they just mean the Japanese service is still
basically
going.
non-Japan. Yeah, basically non-Japan.
Okay. Anyways. Well, that covers it for the headlines that we had. So maybe next week we will have all happy headlines. I actually don't know what we're looking forward to next week. We might be able to talk if I'll poke Hayes and see if we're able to talk about Sword Art Online. Not that that's the biggest headline, but it is a July release. Let's see. What else is July? Because August we have Beast of Reincarnation. We have, I guess, Mortal Shell 3.
Cold Step Begins, the newest Cold Step game in a decade.
Not to be
Junior's
confused with
planning on
Cold Step
covering
the
that, right?
First.
Junior
Yeah,
is.
we talked about that last. Yeah.
I feel like there's something very important happening July 18th, but I can't tell what it was.
I
Well,
just
you
look
know
at
the
the
day,
time
but
We'll
you
frame.
have so Josh, are you playing Kyoto Xanadu at launch?
I don't know.
I'll
I'm
play it
thinking
at
about
launch.
it. I'm thinking about
Okay,
it.
then we'll have impressions of Kyoto Xanadu next week.
Oh, cool.
the
I forgot that
the
was
missing. Yeah, I mean it's only in Japan, but it's also coming to PC.
Right.
The Western version is it's a myth at this point.
Mhm.
People thought it existed.
I heard some things at Anime Expo. It sounds like that Falcom might have accidentally created a bidding war, which derailed when the Western release was supposed to come out.
Ridiculous.
Interesting.
Surely Falcom will learn from this experience. It'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Well, check out all the articles that we talked about this week at RPG Site Net. That includes the Granblue Fantasy Endless Ragnarok review. That includes the Veritas Tales Witch of the Dark Castle review. That includes the Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced articles, the interviews that Mikhail and others put up, the couple of features coming out of Anime Expo with Suikoden Anime and Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2. Go check out respec.net if it sounds like your jam. We're not directly affiliated, but they are a sister site to us. Check out RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site, and you should be able to find us. Join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. Leave us a like, leave us a rating, leave us a comment on the podcast. We'd like to see those. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. Until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care. Talk to y'all later.